Good evening, good night, good morning. Do you hear it, ladies and gentlemen? The sirens be a singing and we be a talking. The chaos has arrived for another edition of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast with a nice episode number here for us now. We are here to have fun football and chaos all around. We go deeper and deeper into the NFL postseason. And boys, we are nearly essentially at the zenith. We need to wait another week to really talk about it. But there are two teams left for us to speak about in this NFL season. What started with 32, maybe more, it's like 26 teams that had some faith going into the season, has now been chopped all the way down to the final two. Two teams vying for it all. And we will recap the conference championship games here in a couple of moments, along with other things. Of course, myself, the Iceman, leading the proceedings at the bottom of the screen, our champion for this season, our games master, the man, the myth, the legend, wearing cool blue for the shirt. I love it. Justin, how we doing?
Doing good. It's always nice to be champion. I got this nice ring here just on deck, just in case I need to, break out a little smack talk.
I feel like this is going to become the running theme of our podcast now, is that every time you throw to Justin for the intro, he's going to just find the ring somewhere and be like, oh, what's that behind your ear? Oh, it's my ring. How about that? There you go.
The funniest thing will be whenever, because like once or twice Justin has had to go off location to do one of these, is that when he forgets the ring and he's like, damn it. He just forgets the ring.
Yeah, or I've seen some people that have they have their dog on like an Instagram account, then they bring like their dog's head as like a flat like billboard. Have a flat ring as like a flat billboard ring, sort of thing. Like, oh, it's right here. But I can't put it on right now.
Paper mache. He just takes out a ring pop the one time he forgets it.
True.
I might have to do that.
So on the top of the screen with me, the ultimate researcher on this podcast, whether it be for NFL related things or other matters, the Podfather himself. Podfather, how are we doing?
I have straws. I don't know why, but I have straws. So, yeah.
Hey, you have to stock up for the snowstorm.
Yes, because we can only tunnel our way out by using neon straws to get through the ice and the snow here. It's how Long Island. That's how we do it on Long Island, I suppose. Yeah, well, I'm good. I'm good. The beard is growing in. I'm trying to join the bearded brethren. It's not working out spectacularly because I got a long way to go to catch up with you hirsute individuals. But we're doing what we can there. SAT word, by the way, hirsute. It's very good. So, but I'm good otherwise. So
I was going to say that sounds like a word that would have appeared on my SAT prep flashcards I had back in high school.
Well, I mean, you do know that with that, it only comes from the brilliant mind of Dr. Professor Podfather.
Of course, ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Professor Podfather is in the building, and he is not just intellectual, but he is a comedian as well. Before we get to the AFC and NFC championship game reviews, which we will begin the proceedings of this episode with that today, ladies and gentlemen, we have a fun thing for all of you, a return of a fan favorite segment, even if it may only have 3 fans, which may or may not be speaking on a podcast right now. But, I mean, it gives laughs for us. So, ladies and gentlemen, the return of Podfather's dad joke of the week.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I definitely know somebody who lives in the same house that I do that is not a fan of dad jokes and has actually called me out on a number of them. And I feel like I'm going to have some heckling in the background once I get through this one here for you. But this actually, I stumbled across this one the other day. It's actually a pretty good one. When you're conversing with people, let's say that you're out in public and you have, those senior citizens that are out there, they like to tell you details of their life, even if you didn't really plan on it, going through there. So I'm standing in line at, at one of the places in the mall, and have a senior citizen, an elder woman in front of me, and she's, enjoying her day. She's enjoying her life, going about certain things. And I hear her talking to the cashier when she, is buying everything. And she starts to spill details about her life. And she says, I've lived a very good life for 85, 86 years. I was married 4 times. And the woman behind says, 4 times, really? And she said, well, the first marriage was to a banker. And the second marriage was to a circus ringmaster. The third marriage was to a preacher, and the fourth was to a funeral director. And she said, well, that's very eccentric. Why would you do all that? And she looked at me and said, 1 for the money, 2 for the show, 3 to get ready, and 4 to go. That's hilarious. Stop it. It's hilarious.
Well done.
Thank you.
Well done. The layers.
I'm being told to tell the two of you not to encourage me on my dad jokes of the week, but this is the show that we do. So, dad jokes forever. Hoorah!
See, I'm the ultimate antithesis as someone who will never be a father. I love dad jokes most of all.
Yeah,
so I will always applaud dad jokes.
It's the wrong crowd to try and dissuade them because they love this sort of stuff.
Well, Justin and I, for months, listened to plenty of jokes, leaning towards the dad variety when we all work together at some point. So, yeah, we're true. We're used to this.
It's true. Yeah, I feel like too. I caught Justin a little bit. I think he kind of had an idea of where it was going once I started mentioning the different marriages that were there. So I feel like that's why he kind of knew what was happening there. But listen, anytime you can do a one for the money joke, I like it.
I did see specifically a video today.
Oh, did you?
Yeah. Like literally earlier today.
It's a good one. It's a real good one. Yeah. I've seen some of these too where it's like, who's your favorite parent? They say grandma, and it's like, okay, kids say darndest things, but that was a pretty good one too. So, there you go.
That was fantastic. The deeper the pull, like you gotta lead them. My favorite comedy skits will always be the ones where you gotta lead the people on a little bit before you hit the punchline. Those are always the best kind of skits. Skits specials, I love that kind of stuff. That's good right there. That's good. I enjoy it. And speaking, two specific groups of people enjoyed the outcomes of this past weekend's championship games in the National Football League, and many people were dismayed by them. But there's also a group of people that watched at least one of these games and did not enjoy them because the quality of football was, or at least the quality of offensive football, which the lack of offense could make it offensive to the term of offense. We're just going around in circles, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go to the championship game recaps of this NFL season. The AFC Championship game was the first one, which very smart scheduling that they put that first. What a dud of the night would have been if they had ended it with that game. But it was Patriots-Broncos in the Mile High City for the AFC side of things, and the NFC side of things in Seattle, the 12 roaring. It was the Los Angeles Rams versus the Seattle Seahawks. I mean, obviously, you can just search up the winners. You know who won, who did win. It's pretty obvious. But we have a Super Bowl rematch coming up. Always fun to see one of those, especially if it could be a potentially good game on paper. But before we get into that, and really we're going to get into the meat and potatoes of the analysis, as a good old friend of mine would always say, we're going to get into that more next week. We're here to talk about the games itself and our reactions to moments of those games. And obviously, it's the first game. We'll start with it. Boys, AFC Championship game, Broncos-Patriots. Of course, we know the big storyline in this one was Bo Nix. He's going to miss this game, missing the rest of the season. Who knows how much time he might miss to start next season. That'll be more conjecture in the offseason going into next season. But the Broncos losing their starting quarterback who helped them get the first seed in the AFC, who aided them into defeating the Buffalo Bills, and then got them to the AFC Championship game in their first playoff appearance since Peyton Manning retired, I believe, right? Second one, because they did make it last year. So in their second playoff appearance since Peyton retired, first one where they've won a playoff game since Peyton retired. That's what I was thinking of. They make it this far. They lose their starting quarterback, and you know what? They tried, and that defense tried, man. But ultimately, it was for naught. But of course, there's layers to this. Podfather, who throw it to you first? Why was it all for naught? What ultimately subdued the Broncos at the end of the day, where despite the fact that they were a mile high, their play was below zero, and they couldn't win the game?
A terrible decision by Sean Payton to go for it on fourth down inside the 20-yard line in the second quarter when you're up 7-0, knowing full well that the weather conditions are going to be worse, getting continually worse, and that you only had so much magic to play with because you had a guy who hadn't thrown a pass in 2 years as your starting quarterback in Jarrett Stidham. And look, he started the game off a little shaky, but then that touchdown drive, there were some beautiful passes. The one to Mims down the field was electric. Finding Sutton in the open corner for a touchdown, which interestingly enough is something that Bo Nix usually never does. He finds everybody else, but not Courtland Sutton, which is an interesting thing. It was like, Sutton was basically saying, this is what it feels like. This is why I was drafted that high. This is what it's all about. But that Denver's defense had stymied New England's offense for so long, and then you go into that second quarter, that long 11-play drive that ends with a whimper. It ends on a 4th and 1 at the 14. You kick that field goal, you go up 10-0. You make it a little tougher for a New England offense that, let's be honest here, hasn't been impressive this postseason. They were a very solid and stout offense in the regular season, but so far, postseason, they haven't had to do much, but they haven't really convinced you of anything. And so having to fight back from a 10-0 hole would have kind of made it a little more difficult for Drake May to be able to, kind of assess things from there. But then you have your fumbles. Just a short field for New England. They score on two plays. And then your missed field goal started. And then the weather is a big factor. So it was a miscalculation by Sean Payton on that one specific drive that really opened the door because eventually New England was going to score. You knew that Denver's offense wasn't going to be on the field forever, and the defense would have to stand pat, and they did a great job of doing that. But little couple plays here or there kind of really killed them. If they had just taken the points and got up 10-0, we'd be talking about Jarrett Stidham leading the Broncos into the Super Bowl, because I don't think New England would have come back from that, especially with the weather getting as worse as it was on that day in Denver.
Fair analysis, to say the very least. And what if we ever end up making like a leaderboard or just like a list one day of like, top fives of this podcast and top 5 sayings in podcast history? Take the points is certainly up there for one of the sayings. It probably
I yell it in the chat at least once or twice a week during football season, and usually it's met with, "Yeah, you're probably right." Sometimes it's met with, "Well, I wouldn't have done it there," but most of the time I'm like, "Yeah, take the points."
Yeah. To be fair, every once in a while, even during the offseason, Rick just randomly texts the chat, "Take the points," and we're just like, "Is he okay?"
True.
So Justin, Rick with his analysis there, and of course, at the end of the day, decisions get made. You have to live with them. We've definitely seen it. We've broken down games on the podcast before when it comes to decisions. Sometimes it's simplicity to boil it down to a decision, but I think there is definitely merit. What, not asking for agreement or disagreement, but your thoughts on how the game was called on the Broncos side, maybe some of the mishaps, miscues, misplays, whatever you want to say for describing what, like, realistically, like Rick was saying, this Patriots team continuing to not be that impressive offensively. Defensively, they've stepped up, but offensively, this is not looking like a team that had a quarterback that is, all intents and purposes, probably going to be one of the final 3-4 candidates on the MVP ballots, right? We're going to learn here in the next week or two. This offense has not been humming along the way that we've seen from the regular season. So can you speak about, Justin, I think it's fair to call this a missed opportunity by the Broncos, all in all.
Yeah, I mean, it's knowing what you know going into the game. It's a quarterback that you have not been playing with all year long. You know the weather situation. Most of the time with Rick, it's about 50-50. I think probably 50% he's right. 50% it's like, I can maybe see what the other team is doing. But it's interesting to see, like, specifically in this era, the way that bravado is affecting coaching. I mean, it used to only really be a player thing. And now, like, as it goes, and there's an argument for wanting to trust your players and stuff like that. But look, you can make the effort that it might be a few of the nails in the coffin that happened in John Harbaugh's career, because as much as you want to trust your multiple-time MVP quarterback, you can't go for it on every fourth down every time you want to, try and steal the game. So it's an interesting dilemma. With this situation, I obviously think that knowing what the weather was going to be, knowing that it was not going to be grayed out, knowing you had a backup quarterback in the game and that you were still in the game and, in fact, leading, that would have made sense to take the points. So I can't really argue against it.
There we go. On the Patriots side of things, of course, as we've now noted multiple times, Drake may have struggled a little bit in the postseasons, multiple interceptions against the Houston Texans, did just enough against the Chargers, and very similar thing here. What do you make of, I don't want to just outright call it struggles. I mean, when you compare it, it's going to look like struggles. What do you make of the fact that the offense they haven't had a signature game necessarily, but it's been the defense, which I feel like we talked about. I missed the episode, but you guys talked about at the very beginning of the postseason that this was a Patriots defense that wasn't healthy throughout a lot of the season, right? They had some guys, Christian Gonzalez maybe missed a couple snaps here and there. Milton Williams missed some games. They had key guys throughout the season miss games, but now that they're all together, they're all playing. This Patriots defense is looking like a top 3 caliber unit in this postseason, in a postseason where we've seen some really great defenses play. So what do you make of the level the Patriots defense is playing at that has helped in their run here now going back to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, I mean, all credit is due to this Patriots coaching staff. I think that when you speak about the job that Zach Kerr has done in the stead of Terrell Williams, and obviously we hope that Terrell Williams gets through his cancer diagnosis and is able to come back to the sidelines and coach. We hope the best for that. But the job that Zach Kerr has done to kind of step into that role and become the defensive play caller and galvanize this team, of this kind of ragtag group you have. You have guys like Marte Mapu and Robert Spillane, Milton Williams. It's a crew that's kind of, assembled. They're not really a team that has that cohesion and that gelling, but they're finding ways to make it work. Chasen has been a revelation, and he's a guy that we're going to call a first-round bust after a few years. But in New England, he's become a star player on this defense. Their secondary with guys like Carlton Davis and Christian Gonzalez. We all knew what Christian Gonzalez was, but to see him become the leader of the secondary that features speedy Marcus Jones, Jackrabbit Jones, Carlton Davis, these guys that are out there that are just kind of changing the game and changing the way that you look at how you're going to combat this Patriots defense. It's the hidden gem. But you did say a very key phrase, Jurg, that I want to ring out here. New England's core offense did just enough. That's the key, just enough. Now, it's not going to be that case every single time out, but at the same time, when you're expecting, your team to put up larger numbers on offense and they don't, your defense has to be pretty much pitch perfect, and hasn't really been, I would say, the case. They've been great. Listen, in this postseason, they've been fantastic. 3 points against the Chargers, a bounty of interceptions against the Texans and C.J. Stroud, who had no business playing in the rain and snow. And this Denver defense, they won the battle in the trenches. But again, this is also a team that has allowed 35 points, this season. They've allowed over 20 on a consistent basis. So you're getting a really good defensive struggle right now, but when you turn it into a battle against a high-powered offense, this defense is probably going to bend because that's just the way that these offenses are. They will make you bend. And a defense like this that hasn't been tested or is outperforming their expectations, probably going to break at some points. And it's up to the offense to respond to that. And again, we haven't seen that from the Patriots offense so far this postseason.
Indeed, to say the very least. Justin, your thoughts about both sides of the ball for New England and their roles in this run?
I remembered I was muted. That's why I didn't start talking immediately. Look, their defense is good. Look, I can come at this from the miserable Jets fan because I do think that a lot of the criticisms do have some weight. I mean, when you look at their record this year and the teams they played the Jets twice, the Bengals, and then every other coach has been fired.
Yeah.
Every single one.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? They've had some easy games. They didn't have a ton of teams with a winning record. They had the easiest schedule, strength of schedule. Their playoff run is maybe arguably a little suspect who they play in the first round. They beat up on
the Chargers.
With Justin
never
Herbert
been good in the playoffs ever.
And Justin Herbert's got a bad hand or whatever the case. He had a fractured wrist.
Justin Herbert always has a bad everything. I feel like he can be perfectly healthy, and the Chargers are always just the Chargers in the playoffs.
Yeah, Justin is
was a joke.
Justin is the black mark on guys named Justin. Justin Herbert is, yeah.
And there was no quarterback in the AFC Championship game, so there are black marks. And suspicious, do they really deserve to be there, or did they get lucky throughout the season? But I do feel like unfortunately, you can't really take it away from the team. They made it. It doesn't matter what the schedule looks like. It doesn't matter the strength of schedule. It doesn't matter what injuries happen for your team, another team, a third team. It doesn't matter. You obviously always need a little bit of luck. You need the ball to fall your way, and they kept putting themselves in position to win games the right way. So you do have to give them credit. The defense has played very well against the guys they played with. It's just now this is easily the toughest match they've had on their schedule the entire year. I mean, the Seahawks are arguably the best team in the league right now. They are so complete. you were really going to have to cover Jackson Smith and Jigba. The Rams have the tools to cover, and they could not stop him all day last week. I mean, he had 7 catches, 110 yards, and a touchdown in the first half against the Rams. So it's going to be very interesting to see what they do, where they go, and how it's handled. But, this is the first real test. And I, for one, am excited to see how they handle it.
And that's what we call a transition, ladies and gentlemen, from the AFC Championship game to the NFC Championship game. And a much higher scoring affair in this one. 31-27 was the final score. And this is the kind of one where it's like you look at the box score, and it started out slightly slow on the Rams side of things because we punt on the first one. But then the action picked up from there. Touchdown, field goal, field goal, field goal. 4 straight scoring drives between the two teams. The Seahawks then punt. Rams take a lead. And then a couple possessions later, the Seahawks end up taking it back, a 17-13 lead for Seattle going into halftime. And kind of like you were saying, Justin, I mean, JSN catch like all over the place in that first half. He was absolutely monstrous in a Rams defense that was being praised by many, us included, on this one. We've mainly been praising the defensive line of this team because all due respect to those DBs, not a lot of guys are going to be able to cover Jackson Smith and Jigba. The Patriots might be lucky. They might have one of the few guys in this league that has a chance at being able to slow him down on a possession-by-possession basis here, but that's more for next week. And then first half over, goes into the second half. A punt by Seattle, and you want to talk about opportunities and needing to grab it, right? Muffed punt right here. Muffed punt recovery, I should say, by the Rams, and then no wasted time whatsoever. One play, 17-yard tutty from Sam Darnold to the man that everyone expected, Bobo. yeah. Totally him. It was going to be him the entire time. JSN, who? No, he's the decoy in the offense. Who's running this offense? No, I'm kidding. But then the Rams are able to respond in and of it themselves. Matthew Stafford with the deep one to Parkinson. Devontae Adams as well with a deep shot, and then ultimately Devontae Adams finished the drive as well. But then Seattle again, like the moments in this game where the two teams went back and forth, score. Seattle goes back up by 2 scores, right? Rams get the touchdown, and then what the Podfather saying in the first one? You got to take the points. Ladies and gentlemen, we need like a take the points warning on this program. We need a sound effect for that. But essentially, this is going to be the case here. On what was a long drive, by the way. If I'm not mistaken, this was the longest drive in terms of like how many plays it lasted. 14-play drive by the Rams in this one. And they get all the way down to the Seattle 6 on 3rd down, incompletion, and they go for it on 4th down. I want to give Justin it first, but I know this is like Rick's go-to when it comes to taking the points. So Justin hit it immediately after. all aboard the take the points train. Justin, you go right after. Rick, take the points. Los Angeles.
I'm just disappointed in Sean McVay, man. This is one of the most cerebral minds and one of the most foreshadowing, future, present, able to see things down the road, coaching minds over there. And in 4th and 4 from the 6, you don't try anything unique. For a play, you want to throw it again, which is just fine, whatever. But you take the points. You have the thicker kicker, Harrison Mevis. You'd make it a 1-point game, and all you would need would be to have Stafford march down the field once you get the ball back, because you were going to get the ball back, kick the field goal, win the game, go to the Super Bowl. It's like there's a certain YouTuber who when he's talking about his line of what he believes, he said, guys, it's not that hard to book this. This is really easy when you do it the right way, when you do it simply, But if you try and overcomplicate things and you try and get too cute, that's where things go wrong. And unfortunately for the Rams, Sean McVay tried to get too cute. Yes, you rely on Stafford, who's having an MVP caliber season, that's fine, but the best MVPs are on the teams that know when it's time to give the ball to special teams, let them kick the field goal, and then have the defense make one last stand. especially after a long drive like that. 16 plays, you gotta come away with points, man. And they didn't because they tried to go for it all, and it wasn't going to be the case anyways. And I knew right away when they went for it, they didn't get it. That was the game. Didn't matter. That was the game to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny because the second half, to me, the first half was all about execution. The second half was all about who didn't make mistakes. And there's some key mistakes that really let the game seesaw back and forth. You start with that, it was a fantastic stop on the opening possession. They go 3 and out, and the Rams just muff the punt, give the ball right back to the Seahawks. All of a sudden, the one play, Jake Bobo with his 4th catch of the year ends up scoring a touchdown and puts them in a good lead. And then the Seahawks come back and they make a stop. And even though, who was it? Tariq Woolen made it excellent, almost interception, gives it right back to them on a 4th and 12, makes a mistake, gets a penalty called, puts them in 4th and 15. They go back. What is it? The next play, go right after Woolen, score a touchdown to Puka Nacua. Now it's a close game again. And then they go back and forth. It was the tight end who dropped the ball on 3rd down in the red zone. Could have walked into the end zone, but he just couldn't focus, couldn't hold on to it. And just little mistakes like that. And you would think that was more of the Rams game. I mean, that's the reason they seemingly made it a little bit closer in the second half, because when you're playing the mental game, that's where Sean McVay wants to be. But they made 1 or 2 more mistakes than the Seahawks did. The Seahawks are a complete, smart football team, and they are going to be a tough out this Super Bowl.
Yeah, no, I think you summarized it perfectly. I think for both these games, as opposite ends of the scoring spectrum as they were, it was all about in the critical moments, keeping your head on right, making the smart decisions, the right decisions, and at the end of the day, simply put, the more disciplined team, the more not analytical in terms of how they built the roster, how they scheme things, but just in a drive by drive, case by case, taking in the whole situation, the more composed teams won each game. I think it's fair to say. Now, Tariq Woolen doesn't speak for the rest of the team. He can't do that in the Super Bowl because they're going to face a team that could well, I mean, the Rams did make him pay on that drive, so maybe the Patriots could or couldn't, depending on your point of view. But that's one of those, he doesn't speak for the rest of the team. That was a very disciplined game throughout. And if Tariq Woolen does not get too ahead of himself, if he doesn't get too big for his britches, as some would say, if he just doesn't do something that's unneeded and boneheaded, the Seahawks might even blow the game open at that point. Like a game that could have been relatively more comfortable wasn't comfortable, and he needs to take that into account. But ultimately, at the end of the day, the more composed football team, I think, in both of these games ended up taking the victory. And I think, honestly, boys, that might be, when you try to look at a postseason as a whole, I think that might be like the way to describe this postseason. I can't think of too many situations where the more composed team, whether it was they were more composed for one half over the other, whatever it is, lost the game. The Bills were composed against the Jags, and they came up big in the 4th quarter in what became a back-and-forth game. The Bears, despite being down to Green Bay, were composed. They made the plays they had to make. They executed. They came back and won, right? Like, in a lot of these games, it's that composure that gives you the performances you need. And once again, Tariq Woolen can't do that. Thankfully you have other good talented defensive players and other defensive backs on that team aside from him, but you have a defense that all around took leaps and bounds this season under in year 2 of McDonald, and you're seeing the results right here. Like this is a Seattle team for both these teams, right? Like this was something big. The thing I saw earlier, I forget what number, how many occurrences it is, but 2 teams that missed the postseason last year, making it this year. Not just to the postseason, but to the Super Bowl is absolutely it. You want to talk about wanting parity and saying that your league has parity? That's the kind of thing that you show if you're a commissioner and be like, look at that. Your team could make a run for the Super Bowl next year.
2 young guys on teams that didn't make the playoffs, 2 quarterbacks that have never made the playoffs, Super Bowl, 2 coaches that have never made the Super Bowl. There's a lot.
Yep.
2 good franchises, old Super Bowl rematch,
and 2 really recent hires as well. I've ever watched 2 recent hires,
and an Englishman, the defensive coordinator of the Seahawks because Aiden Durd was born in Middlesex, England, and played in NFL Europe.
I don't think they're preaching that to the States, though.
Listen. If
that's how you get that fifth London game.
If a Tory wins the Super Bowl, we're all in trouble.
Yeah, I don't think they're like some limeys in the freaking, and all the people in New York are like, yeah, limey. No.
Well, a pint.
I gotta say, at the very start of the postseason, NFL podcasts and NFL shows on certain networks, mind you, we're talking about a certain quarterback in the Pacific Northwest, and did they trust him? Guys, I think it's safe to say, Sam Darnold, when he had to, performed in the NFC Championship game.
I thought this was another Geno Smith rant, but
don't jinx it, because there's been plenty of games where Sam Darnold had to perform and didn't.
I'm saying just for the NFC Championship.
He has seen ghosts before,
Yeah, that's the first tweet I saw after they won.
Yeah.
I was like, can you give him a fucking break? Jesus Christ. I'll put a quarter in the swear jar for that. Leave the kid alone. I think, what was that, his rookie year?
Leave Sam Darnold alone!
For real.
Yeah. I know.
Caught on a hot mic 8 years ago on the worst team in the league playing the freaking Patriots with Tom Brady. And then all of a sudden you were like...
Not just caught on the hot mic, it deliberately put... You know how many of those audio things go by and they don't air and they choose to air that one?
Justin needs a cake.
Yes.
I was so enriched and enjoyed. I might. I might. We'll exchange addresses after the show, and I'll send you a nice little cake for the Super Bowl. You're gonna enjoy it. Yeah,
Justin's gonna need it for his boycotting of the Super Bowl.
That is true.
Because
I don't know where this came from. I never said that.
Listen. Well, to be fair, I boycotted last year's game, so it's only fair that somebody else has to boycott this year's game.
Yes,
I did.
Because
the Puppy Bowl was great last year.
Watch the Super Bowl.
The Puppy Bowl was great last year. I didn't know what happened in the game. I only saw it through highlights or lowlights if you were a Chiefs fan.
There were a lot of defensive lowlights. Yes, speaking of lowlights, big question. Rick, just as well. Is this a Jets fan worst nightmare, this Super Bowl matchup?
Ooh.
Because I'm sure, Rick, it's come across your feed if it hasn't already. Benchwarmer Bran, shout out to Connecticut native. He put up the skit of like a Jets fan and like someone time traveling, the skit. And it's like, hey, you don't want to see this. You don't want to see the season. You don't want to see the Super Bowl. Like on one side, you have the team, not a team, the team that has tormented your, however old you are as a Jets fan. On one side, you have a team that has tormented you for your entire life as a football fan, that has been the boogeyman. And for years, you could lord over them for a bit, but now they're back. And they're back a lot quicker than a lot of people thought.
2 years. They didn't have a quarterback.
They were bad for like 3 years. And then on the NFC side of things, Justin referenced it. Justin was one of the nicer Jets fans that I know, especially having done many podcasts with Jets fans, to Sam Darnold. But at the end of the day, this is the former number 3 overall pick, right? Jets starting quarterback that is in Seattle. Rick, is this a Jets fan's worst nightmare to see
the savior?
It's pretty close, I would say. I mean, I could think of a few other possible scenario worst nightmares that we could have had in the postseason as a possibility there. Pittsburgh, San Francisco could have been bad because Aaron Rodgers getting to a Super Bowl after he left the Jets versus Robert Saleh, the ex-head coach who arguably shouldn't have been fired, getting there. Because I feel like recency bias is kind of a big swing on all of that. But this one's pretty up there because it's not just Sam Darnold, it's Leonard Williams, who was the number 5 or 6 pick, I think, by the Jets, also for Seattle. And yeah, I mean, it's the Patriots. I understand that, but I don't necessarily know if I would have liked any AFC East team. If it was Buffalo in the Super Bowl, there's that whole, they haven't won, and they lost 4 in a row, but it's not the same, but it's still the divisional thing. It's still the matter of,
Yeah, I mean, maybe because I went to Buffalo for a couple of years, so maybe I have a little soft spot for them. I'm not ever rooting for them, but if they're in the Super Bowl against a specific team, maybe I would. I don't really know.
Yeah, I mean, so to call it the worst nightmare possible, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I feel like if the Super Bowl this year had been on a whim, let's just say it, Dallas versus Indy, with Sauce Gardner and Quinnen Williams making the Super Bowl after getting traded mid-season, that would be pretty unfortunate, I would think.
Yeah, look. Here's the thing. This is what people don't understand. Every day being a Jets fan is a freaking nightmare.
Yeah.
It doesn't get better or worse.
That's
It
true.
is just a nightmare at all points. You're going to tell me that the Jets drafted a quarterback good enough to go to the Super Bowl? I'm taking it. That's one of the best. That's one of the highlights of my fandom career. It just is.
Yeah.
I can't believe that they actually drafted someone that was good enough to go to the freaking Super Bowl. Now, I don't expect them to be on the team at the time. And let's face it, I also believe that if Sam Darnold would have stuck with the Jets for the last 8 years, he would not be as good as he is now. But we all do know that this is what we expected from Sam at some point in his career when he was being drafted. For a long time, he was touted as the number one quarterback. Then he slipped very late in the draft process of the second year that we were talking about him because he had already won a Heisman Trophy, and then he went back. And look, he's just this is what we expected his height to be. So he's been on this is his fourth team since he's been on the Jets. He's been off the team for a number of years. Joe Douglas has said it's come out recently. Joe Douglas saying, look, Sam is going to be a great quarterback in this league. He was just the right quarterback at the wrong time. And, we always wished him luck. This is the day he got traded. I did not wish a bad thing upon him. I didn't want him to be traded. I would have rather kept him at the time. I don't know if remember we discussed it, but look, he deserves to be there. And so does Leonard Williams. Leonard Williams has had a great career. I remember when we traded him to Seattle, I was, it sucked, but it was the right move for Seattle, and the Jets have never made a right move in their life. So that's normal. But like I said, the Patriots being in the Super Bowl doesn't matter who they're playing. I don't care if they could play the 2017 Jets in a different jersey on a different franchise. And I still say, that's not so bad. It could be worse because every day being a Jets fan is just an absolute nightmare.
Oh boy! Well, that was very My Chemical Romance of you there, Justin. Oh boy! When he was a young boy.
I hope I inspire my own 50 Shades of Grey.
Oh,
50 Shades of Green.
50 Shades of Justin.
I like that.
Yeah,
I'm not gonna write that book though.
Smut.
I mean, at some point, it doesn't need to be smut, but just in general, the writing of the experience as a Jets fan, I could think of no other kind of torture than to put 50 Shades of Green as the title.
You would think with my dedication to such a garbage team that there got to be some sexual component to it, but there isn't. It's just hard.
Well, not for
I don't know. Maybe I like hardship. I don't know.
You,
nobody likes this kind of pain without there being some sort of sick, twisted fantasy behind it. But I don't know. I guess I just freaking do. I don't understand it. I don't want to be a Jets fan anymore, but I can't turn it off.
So,
we're
learning a lot of things today.
If I could steer this conversation a little bit, because I feel I feel like this is the perfect opportunity to break from tradition and do a keep four, cut four, if you will. Thank you very much.
This is going to become.
You understand what I was saying, though, right?
Yes,
this kind of torture.
Well,
for the record, keep four, cut four is going to become a staple during the spring and the summer, Rick. We're probably going to play this every week.
But this is the perfect opportunity because I hate to do this and pile on, but it's about to get more torturous. I kind of do. I have writing this down to add to I came through with this earlier today. I have keep four, cut four of the biggest reasons for the Jets curse in the current era of the Jets curse. So I have a list here of.
Should I just take a step back and let Justin do this?
You can do that. I mean, listen. There's gonna be names on here that maybe I'll need to kind of go through the whole list of everything. But obviously, you guys know how keep four, cut four works. I give you a name or a scenario, and you keep it or you cut it. But obviously, you only get 4 of each. So this is for who is to blame the most, I would say, for the Jets curse.
I'm going to need a drink after this podcast.
It's not
if you want to get it during the podcast.
Listen, I'll make the cake boozy for you, okay? How's that sound? Oh, there you go. All right. Not a real sponsor. Okay, so.
I had it turned around.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
All right, so number one on the keep four, cut four of who is to blame the most for the Jets being the most cursed franchise in the NFL. I'm going to start with what I think is pretty much a layup. Fireman Ed, Mike Greenberg, and the Jets fan base themselves. Because I feel like there are some Jets fans that are out there that, are decent enough people that their life doesn't hinge on what happens with the Jets themselves. I feel like, Justin, even though you put on a persona here on the podcast, I feel like you have a good enough life outside of football that you're okay, if the Jets don't do well, you can move on with your day and not have it, lord over you. But then there's firemen. I know. Well, I'm giving you a positive spin here in case there's anybody who sees this that might think that you're, somebody who was worthy of going on to a bar date with, in the future, whatever the case is. But Fireman Ed, Mike Greenberg, and those type of fans who were like, they were going to jump off the Taipei 101 with Alex Honnold if the Jets lose another single game again. Those guys, I think, are the problem here and the crux of this. So, keep or cut, the fan base is to blame for the Jets' pain.
Okay, let me just say one thing. Greeny is the best of us. I don't like this Greeny slander. Don't compare him to Fireman Ed.
Okay.
All right.
But
Greeny is a real fan.
The reason why I'm saying
that
is because
the rest of us in the most best and appropriate way, in my opinion.
Fair.
All right.
He's worse as a Knicks fan than a Jets fan, Rick.
I suppose that's
all
fair.
Knicks fans, Jerg. Your opinion is invalid.
Well, no. When it comes to Knicks fans, I hate Mike Greenberg. When it comes to
he has an image of himself strangling Jeff Van Gundy while he's holding onto Alonzo Mourning's leg from like '99 or whatever it was.
Regardless, I'm gonna cut here because every fan base has those fans. I mean, you got Chiefsaholic out there robbing banks. You got the silver and black doing terrible things after the game. Like every fan base has these. It's just New York is in a public eye. They're in a stigma. They do have a larger fan base, so there's more of them. But I don't necessarily blame the fan base for what the organization does, because you can have a terrible fan base and still be good.
And here's the thing for me with interacting with people from all the New York sports fandoms and all the teams, like to me, the Jets are one of the rare where I want good things to happen to them, because when Giants fans get overconfident, they're going to win the NFC East and they're going to go on another run like they did with Eli. When Knicks fans get confident they're the greatest franchise in NBA history, when they're probably not even deserving to be top 5 just in terms of straight accomplishments. Yankees fans are the worst, and Mets fans are delusional. When it comes to the Jets, they don't claim they'll be the best in the league. They just want wins. I feel bad for them, man.
The bar is so low.
The bar is so like what the people in the Jets fandom do not compare to the other sports fandoms, and especially Fireman Ed. He hasn't, as far as I know, he hasn't committed atrocities. Bro just wants to watch his team win. There's worse people in fan bases out there. Like we just said, Chiefsaholic. Dude has literally been sent to jail. Fireman Ed is not that.
Okay, that's fair. Now, again, so there's
I also know there's going to be more devious things here, so that's all part
very
of
much so.
Yeah,
there isn't here's the thing. There's an obvious omission on this list. I'm not putting Woody Johnson on this list because we all know that he is to blame for all this. I'm saying
that is the crown.
I'm saying outside of Woody Johnson. I'm trying to get creative with this list. I'm not trying to make it simple. So
that would have been good to know beforehand, but I stand by my decision.
Yeah. Okay, so. From the fans, I'm going to go to maybe another outside choice here. Former New York State lawmakers who have recently passed on, Sheldon Silver and Joseph Bruno. Now, there's a reason for this. Back in 2005, 2006, whatever it was, Jets fans were excited by the prospect of the West Side Stadium in New York City, getting their own building, getting their own football stadium to call their own, not sharing with the Giants, not sharing crummy Giant Stadium with the Giants, their own place to be. Well, that came down to a vote between 3 committee chair people of whether or not to use public funding to make the West Side Stadium. Governor George Pataki, Sheldon Silver, and Joseph Bruno. Pataki, being a sports fan, said yes, absolutely. Silver and Bruno, not only did they not even they could have said no and it killed it, but they abstained from the vote, which basically was a passive denial, which not only killed the West Side Stadium, it killed a college football bowl game that could have happened at the Westside Stadium. It killed the rights to the Super Bowl that they were going to have at that stadium. And it killed New York City's 2012 Summer Olympics bid, which went to London instead. So it killed a lot more than just the Jets, but you could say that created a larger curse here, I would think. So Sheldon Silver and Joe Bruno, rest in whatever you want to call it, but keep or cut for their reasoning for the curse of the Jets paying. Again, you could have had your own stadium instead of traveling out to MetLife now.
I have my qualms with this also.
Okay.
But I know you, Rick, and I know that there are 4 way more deserving ones than some old senators. I'm pretty sure it's come up again since then, has it not?
What?
And it was denied again, or am I misremembering?
No. So what happened was actually Steve Wynn of Wynn Casino wanted to build a large hotel on that location, and they denied that as well. There was some other talks about building the stadium out by where Shea used to be, where Citi Field is, where they're doing Etihad Park for New York City Football Club, but that never gained any traction because that's like, oh, you're just putting the Jets back where they once were. But this was like a brand shiny new centerpiece of a New York City, renaissance, if you will, that was just voted down because we don't want to use public funding for this nonsense. When the public was all for it.
Yeah, no, I'm gonna cut.
Yeah, I was gonna say when it comes to I'm always on one hand billionaires being able to use the public as a means to helping fund the stadium when they can pay for it themselves, and also the congestion and the traffic in New York City without a football stadium is already something. Let's add a football arena and let's see how that goes. Like also at the same time, the NYC, the 5 boroughs should have an NFL stadium within its confines. Like it just doesn't feel right for New York. But I'm following Justin's lead here. Like we both know you, we've known you for a long time. There are 4 more devious.
You can't fool us, Rick.
Concepts on this.
Damn it! I mean, listen. I listen. The Jets fan poll, fine, but you got to give me credit for that.
That one I give you a lot more credit for.
Yeah, that one.
Listen, I understand the fan side too. I'm just not going to give that any weight.
That's fine. I respect that. Okay.
People that will discover this episode are going to hear this part, and they will have had zero idea of what you were saying. There are 100% NFL fans that had no idea that there were a significant bid to get the Jets to actually be, as it says in the name, New York, and to come back to NYC.
Well, also remember that MetLife Stadium was going to be called Allianz Stadium for a while until you looked at their past delays. Anyways, all right. So you want a layup? I'll give you a layup here. Do you keep or cut this as a reason for the Jets curse? Todd Bowles, Adam Gase, Robert Saleh, and Aaron Glenn, a.k.a. every coach after Rex Ryan. Because, I mean, they haven't made the playoffs since, right? So it's got to be the coach's fault, especially Adam Gase, right?
This is my time to shine. Because you know what this is? This is hiring decisions. And you know who makes the hiring decisions? Rick. I don't care if you want to take his name out of it. I don't care if you want to try and absolve or move along or distract. There's one man up there that makes these freaking hiring decisions, okay? And we'll leave it at that. We're keeping it.
So I should then add John Idzik to this as well, Mike McCagnon as well to this, just because that's furthering the spot. All right, from an analytical perspective. GMs.
I'm with Justin here because at the end of the day, it does go hand in hand. And if we want to subliminally, the grand poobah himself, Woody Johnson, if we want to technically, this is his inclusion into the list, then yeah. But no, whether you've had head coaches that and we've talked about it on the show so many times, whether you've had GMs that just didn't understand how to build a roster, or GMs they finally built a roster and it was just bad timing with the head coach. You had a situation where the head coach was perceived that he had more power than the general manager. Good organizations don't allow that to happen. It's just straightforward. I'm with Justin here. This is the perfect first keep for us here.
Okay.
I was gonna be concerned if this was something really weak. I'm like, we're gonna have to start keeping. But this is the perfect first keep because Jets' head coaches and GMs hand in hand have 100% had a role in why they've been bad for so long.
All right, I respect that. So we have 2 cuts so far, and we have 1 keep. The keep is a pretty obvious one. I think the cuts you could make arguments either way, which is fine. All right, now we're down to 5 names here. I feel like I may lose you, and you may split you with this one. Doug Bryan. Doug Bryan, the kicker.
All right, so as a Jets fan, you gotta as a non-Jets fan, you gotta give me the lore here.
In 2004, the Jets made the playoffs under Herm Edwards, and in the wild card round game in San Diego, they defeated the Chargers 20-17 because of a Doug Bryan made field goal. The next round, in the divisional round at Pittsburgh, Doug Bryan has 2 chances to kick a game-winning field goal in the fourth quarter against Roethlisberger and the Steelers. Misses both of them. Game goes to overtime. Steelers win in overtime. That would have sent the Jets, who were looking to beat the 15-1 Pittsburgh Steelers at the time, to an AFC title game, yes, against Tom Brady and the Patriots, but you would have been a step away from a Super Bowl against possibly the Philadelphia Eagles, Donovan McNabb in there, Chad Pennington, a chance for the Jets defense to make good on that. So Doug Bryan, 2004, that was one of your best chances of recent lore to get into the playoffs and go far and kind of make your case there. Now, the reason why I'm saying I'm losing this is because I'm slandering a kicker, and we know how Jerk feels about that. But Justin, as a lifelong Jets fan, probably remembers where he was when he was watching that game and remembers the vitriol that he felt, as I did when I was a Jets fan at that time, when he missed not the 47-yarder, but the 43-yarder as time expired. Those are clutch chip shot field goals nowadays.
There's more than that. If you really remember, so the week before, it was also Heart Attack City with the Chargers.
Yep.
And I believe it was Phillip Rivers' rookie year.
Yes, it was.
And they missed a field goal to win the game in regulation, had to go into overtime, and I believe hit the crossbar and bounced over in overtime from a long field goal.
Yes, he did.
I was at a bar mitzvah, and we found a TV in an old dressing room, and me and my friend sat there and watched, and then eventually had half the party in that dressing room watching the game.
There you
and
go.
Then the next week, I remember sitting on the couch in my basement with my father watching the Steelers one, and that is the first time I remember him telling me that he will never live to see a Jets Super Bowl because this franchise is cursed. And then that resulted in them taking another kicker who ended up being long-term a disappointment. In the second round, I believe they drafted one, Mike Nugent.
Yes, they did.
Ohio State. So this one is tough because I do want to include it, but I know that I'm going to be torn about it later because obviously there's some other things that I'm expecting.
Yeah, I was going to say, we're halfway through this list, and honestly, I'm tempted to make it a keep just from Justin giving the line from his dad that miskicked against Pittsburgh.
It's not the first time he told me. I know
it's
that.
tough.
No, I'm sure, but
also,
I remember him being like, "This is a cursed organization."
But also,
you choose another team, and I promise you, we will never see a Jets Super Bowl.
But also remember this, Justin. Too, we had just come off of as Jets fans the John Hall era, which is arguably my favorite era of kicker. You know, I was growing up, and John Hall was the only good thing about that team for years until they got Testaverde. And I'll get into that era pretty soon. Don't you worry about that, because there's some more things I have to talk about that. So that's why I said this one's a tricky one because it's a split decision, I feel like. But I don't know. What do you think?
I think the split is more so down to the fact of Justin is really expecting heavyweights coming in, super heavyweights coming in here soon. Where I'm torn between okay, I could see it, the details, and I'm just trying to rack my brain around. And again, this is the one flaw of not having a team you fully support. You don't always know all the lore. It's I'm oh, what other dirt does Rick have on this list? Because this is a dirty list.
Well, people forget Rick grew up a Jets fan.
I did.
Some say he still secretly might be.
Yeah, you know what?
We'll never know.
One day
certainly won't admit it here.
Never know.
One day it'll be the SAOC version of a 30 for 30 of how Rick was this entire time still a closet Jets fan.
You know, I'm gonna keep this one, and only because it is a part of my history and lore as being a Jets fan. This is probably one of the only things that I can really truly remember and relate to. I mean, obviously outside of the coaching decisions that we just mentioned. So this will be my second keep.
Okay. Jerg, is this your second keep as well?
I have to take the risk with the cut just because I again.
You're going to cut?
Yeah.
He's going to keep 3 out of the next 4.
I know.
He's got a secret. He's got a secret, oh, not worth it one in there.
Oh, he's going to make Mark Sanchez one of them.
No, Mark Sanchez is not one of them.
No.
He's not one of them. That would be too easy. That would have been too easy.
There's going to be another quarterback that makes
I will take the risk. And
you're going to cut Doug Bryan. Okay. All right. That's fine. Okay. So if you're going to take that risk, then I have to introduce you to my final 4, which are dastardly.
Speaking of brackets.
I do say so myself. Yes. I'm going to save one for the very end because it's going to be a diabolical one to save for the end. Trust me when I tell you that.
I hope it's the one that I'm thinking of, because then I have
So here. So let me see where I can get you with this one. Joe Namath. The guarantee, and they won the Super Bowl, but what has happened since then? Futility and frustration. And also, remember that Monday night game when Joe Namath made an absolute fool of himself in the sideline interview, basically telling Susie Colbert, I couldn't care less about the team struggling. I just want to kiss you, because he was drunk. And he admitted that he was drunk.
You know what? That moment by itself might be the key bonus.
That one right there speaks volumes, because of the fact that that's the epitome. That was your one shining franchise moment of winning the Super Bowl, and that is how he acted less than 50 years, around 50 years later.
Walk with me here. Mark Messier guarantees in 1994, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
They end up winning the Cup.
Yes.
Rangers have never won a Stanley Cup since.
Sure. But has Messier tried to kiss anybody? Then he was drunk.
No. I'm not talking about
not on TV.
I'm sticking with the guarantees here.
We are not saying that Messier did anything out here. That is not a thought to say. No.
How dare you say that potentially about my coworker? Anyways,
all this beautiful, man.
Yeah. So he did that. Did the Knicks in the finals against the Rockets? I'm certain a Knicks
same day.
No. Willis Reed, remember, he had that flu game where I think he guaranteed he would play in Game 7 in 1970.
Did that, and then ever since, nothing after that.
Well, they made 2 finals, including the lockout season that no one really cares about.
Did they win?
No,
exactly. They didn't win. And then
Patrick Ewing made a guarantee the same day Messier did also. But
that's true. That's true.
And look what happened.
Yeah. Well.
And then the Yankees are the Yankees. you know what their guarantee is? Their guarantee to their fans is that they'll finally do something to change the team, and yet they refuse to fire Brian Cashman. So honestly, if I'm just following the trend, it looks like guarantees in New York sports curse your team. I think Joe Namath has cursed the Jets for the last, 50 or so years, give or take. I don't know. I want to listen to Justin here. It's going to take a lot to dissuade me from making this my second keep. In part because I have 3 cuts, so I kind of have to keep one of these coming up.
You're looking at it all wrong. You're looking at it all wrong.
All right, talk to me, buddy.
In 1969,
nice
poolside, a young, on top of the world Joe Namath realized the predicament that he was in, playing a team that was also heavily favored against the New York Jets. And what Joe Namath did is he went to the spot. I don't know where it is, but he went there and he found the devil, and he made a deal. And not only did he sell his soul for that Jets Super Bowl, but he sold the soul of every Jets quarterback and player and every single franchise hope that this franchise would ever have again, and all for that one single Super Bowl. Not 2, not 3, just 1. And I'll take it. There's plenty of franchises that don't have a Super Bowl. But let me tell you this. The Jets will never, ever have a viable quarterback on their team as long as this man is still alive, because he sold his soul, and we will never, ever see another Jets quarterback with any skill whatsoever. I'm not wishing for Joe Namath to die. That's not what it was. I may have come off that way. Joe Namath is
actually, to be fair, I've gone on several rants.
Oh my Lord.
He's the Jets quarterback. He's clearly the most Jets Hall of Famer of all time. I think the only Hall of Famer with a losing record. It is the most Jets thing. And I don't wish anything bad upon Joe Namath, but he is the reason why this team will never have a quarterback ever. I don't expect him to die either. I assume that part of the deal was that he's going to live forever. so I will never see the Jets have a real quararterback.
So part of
they
that
will
deal
never, ever have a quarterback because of the deal that Joe Namath made with this. I don't know if it's like a demon or whatever, or I didn't meet the guy, but I know this deal is part of the reason that the Jets are absolutely a cursed franchise.
So Joe Namath made a deal with the devil, and ever since, the spirits and souls of Jets fans have just been screaming into the abyss the following.
That's essentially.
That's real.
So you know what? I mean, I was already swayed to keep it. I'm keeping this bad boy. Rick, keep going.
Okay, all right. So
I was waiting for that one.
that's the one you were waiting for. Okay, because there's three others that I think.
I know. Now I'm in the hole.
Exactly, you're in the hole now.
To cut.
Yeah, exactly. Well, think about it like this too. Jurg has two that he can keep. I'm gonna see about this one here. I'm gonna see if he wants to keep this one or.
For the
cut
record,
this
on
one.
my notes, I wrote that as Joe Namath deal with the devil for my note keeping.
Yes. All right, and remember, Justin, you're in a pickle here because I could give you a pretty simple one to cut. Although I'll be honest with you, these three are pretty tricky. One of them's kind of the outside of the box one. I'll go with that one first because I feel like this one might be a little trickier. Darian Gordon. Now, if you don't know the name, that's because I don't blame that you know the name.
Help me.
Darian Gordon was a journeyman secondary player, cornerback for 10 seasons in the NFL. First-round draft pick in 93 by the San Diego Chargers. His career found him after San Diego, joining the Denver Broncos in 1997. And he had good years in 97, and he was fine. And obviously, 98, he had his year again where they won the Super Bowl ring. But let's talk about the 99 AFC Championship game. Jets, Denver. Vinny Testaverde, Keyshawn Johnson, Curtis Martin, Wayne Corbett, that phenomenal team. 12-4, one of the best Jets seasons in memory. Bill Parcells, phenomenal. They destroy Jacksonville in their home game. Everyone's feeling good. They go to Denver. They're up 10-0, and this punk journeyman, Darian Gordon, has 2 interceptions in the second half of that game, leading Denver to a 23-point unanswered momentum swing where the Broncos end up winning that AFC title game 23-10, going to the Super Bowl to face the Atlanta Falcons, a team the Jets probably could have beaten handily. And what does he do in that Super Bowl? 2 picks against Chris Chandler. Chris Chandler, Super Bowl starting quarterback. Let's talk about that for a moment there. 34-19. Jets probably would have beaten Atlanta. It's like if Carlos Beltran didn't swung at that curveball from Adam Wainwright in 07, Mets would have beaten the Tigers in 06, and they would have won the World Series. Missed opportunity there because Darian Gordon had those 2 picks. And then what happened the very next year? Justin, you remember what happened the very next year, right? With Testaverde in week 1? Tore his ACL and Achilles, out for the entire season. Tom Tupa was the quarterback. The punter was the quarterback in that game, the emergency QB.
He tripped on He tripped on the 20-yard line, running backwards?
Yep. So, Darian Gordon, the butterfly effect, Testaverde's Achilles, Parcells leaves the team.
I feel like you've given me the Boston fans' version of Bucky effing Dent.
Exactly.
Darian effing
Gordon. Yeah.
I'm gonna cut here, and here's why. He's not a reason. He's just a symptom.
Okay,
that's a good one right there. That's a good one right there.
It's not his fault.
Okay.
He just got lucky that he got lucky enough to play the Jets.
Okay.
I think there's at least one left that's stronger than this. So one of my keeps is going to go to that. So what I need to flip the coin on is, do I think that both of these last 2 are more than that? Now, here's the thing. This is the struggle for me because on one end of the spectrum, I agree with Justin. Like, this is a symptom of a larger issue. And this also goes hand in hand with Joe Namath's deal with the devil, is that Vinny Testaverde must throw 2 interceptions in the AFC Championship game and then suffer a career-altering injury, essentially career-ending injury the next year. Like that feels like this is an extension of that. On the other hand, on one hand, this is a symptom. On the other hand, I love moments like this to just talk about them. So I'm torn. For sure, one of the last 2 is going to be worse than this. So I'm confident in one keep. Am I confident in both? And I would essentially I'd make it a situation where I have to keep the last 2. I don't get any say in it. I'm a gambling man. So actually, no one says that.
So you're going to keep the last 2 then. You're already locked into that. So
yeah, I'll say I'll cut this and now we'll see what the last 2 are.
Now, the real testament, though, is going to be what Justin does with the last 2 because he's got 1 to keep
he's split.
And 1 to cut. Ryan Fitzpatrick.
I'll gladly keep this.
Week 17 against Buffalo. The last real gasp that the Jets had of a playoff bid. 3 interceptions. Jets lose to Buffalo after an incredible season that Fitzy had, a remarkable season that all started when Geno Smith got punched out in the locker room by IK and Impali, let's remember. Thank you. It's hilarious. That happened. So there you go. Ryan Fitzpatrick. Because remember, the next year he got his money. And was he the same Ryan Fitzpatrick?
He was not.
He was not. This was the one magical opportunity that they had.
Now, this is worse than you're telling the people, because people will forget they just needed to win one game against Buffalo, who I believe was starting backup quarterback out of USC. What's his name? The blonde kid, Rick.
Was it Matt Barkley?
Matt Barkley. Because they were also out of it already. And I believe their quarterback was hurt. Was Tyrod Taylor at the time?
It was Tyrod Taylor or Nathan Peterman, one of the random
They were
two.
a bad team. And they were head coached by one Rex Ryan, who wanted revenge. And
Tyrod Taylor did play this game, by the way. I have the box score up.
There you go.
No, you know what? It was such a blowout that Matt Barkley played the second half. Is that what it was?
Had to have, yeah.
No. The Jets only lost 22-17.
Even worse. It felt like a blowout, but it was because of the interceptions. But it wasn't.
Maybe they. I think they also maybe scored a garbage time touchdown. Like, it was never close. But what the hardest part about this was that one Buffalo win would have given you a playoff berth. It was a tough year in the AFC too, because I think they have 11 wins and they still missed the playoffs.
Yeah,
it was a tough year.
10-6, yeah.
10-6, yeah. They would have been 11-5.
One win would have made the playoffs. 2 wins against Buffalo would have put them at the number 1 seed.
And may I remind you,
edging out the Patriots.
And may I remind you,
a wild card spot.
This is the year that started the 14, 15 consecutive or something like that. You know, to really hit home. It was like the start of the, oh God, this is really going to be a streak that we're not going to be able to overcome, because this was our best chance to make the playoffs since the Mark Sanchez days.
Yep.
And if I may further add on to this, you can honestly argue that 2 of Fitzpatrick's
add on to it. Go ahead.
Was the fact, because no, here's the thing. Because Justin's referring to it, week 10 when they lost to the Buffalo Bills, it was the same exact score, 22-17.
Yep.
He threw 2 interceptions in that game and sub 200 passing yards.
Yep.
They lose to the Texans the next week, which, 2015, my memory is hazy. Maybe the Texans were decent, maybe not. I don't know. After they start the season 5-5, they go on a 5-game winning streak, beating the Dolphins, beating the Giants, destroying the Titans, beating the Cowboys at Jerry World, and then at home against the New England Patriots, winning in overtime.
The Eric Decker touchdown catch.
To set up a scenario where they could have made the postseason. And I have no qualms with this being one of my keeps, because this legitimately was the last gasp of hope.
Yeah.
And like you said, Rick, this is honestly the big nail of the streak the Jets are on now, of however many missed consecutive postseasons. This was the season where this streak, it wouldn't be as large as it was. This was the time. That's
fair. That's fair.
This is also arguably the best season a quarterback has ever played for the Jets. Not only were they 10-6, but they had 3,900 yards. He is the only quarterback that I can think of. I'm pretty sure the only quarterback in Jets history to have more than 30 passing touchdowns.
Yeah.
He had a almost 60% completion rating, which I guess is probably high for the Jets. Like, this is arguably the best season a Jets quarterback has ever had. They had a fantastic receiving core with Brandon Marshall and Eric Decker, like you said.
Yes.
Who was the running back that year?
Chris Ivory got the bulk of the starts. Yep.
Yeah.
So, but again, this is a symptom of the issue, not the cause.
And if I may also,
Brian Fitzpatrick's fault that Joe Namath sold his soul.
To continue to look at the Jets team, if you go to the defense, we're talking about this season where they finished with 0 interceptions, 1 interception this year. You look at this Jets team that Marcus Williams led the team in interceptions with 6 this season. Darrelle Revis, who came back this was probably the last great season of his career, Darrelle Revis, 5 interceptions for the Jets. You look at a bunch of guys, you still had veterans like David Harris and Muhammad Wilkerson being there, and Wilkerson leading you in sacks, Sheldon Richardson, Calvin Pace, I don't know if this was his rookie. I think it's looking like it was his rookie season. Leonard Williams, He finished top 3 defensive rookie of the year voting.
Mm-hmm.
This may have been the best Jets season in the modern era. Maybe not. I don't know. It depends on how far back you want to.
Since 2010.
Yeah, let's say since 2010. Since 2010, this was the best Jets season you could have asked for. Your defense was the perfect
only good
mix.
season since 2010.
That's true. This was the perfect mix of veterans and youth on defense. You had top 2 receivers playing at the best of their game. And if I'm not mistaken, this was the last great year for both Marshall and Decker. I think, didn't both of them basically fall off after this year too?
Yes, it did.
Decker retires after his Jets career, and Marshall moves on to another team, but it's never the same.
Exactly.
Eric Decker was married to a country music star, so I mean, he was fine.
Like this was literally the time, the players, the situation. This was the moment for this team to do something, and they threw it away, literally and figuratively.
So, Jerry, you have to keep this one because you had it on 2 tweets.
I would have kept this no matter what.
My question is, Justin, what are you going to do?
I told you this is a symptom. This is not
symptom.
A cause.
So you're going to cut this one.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So before I reveal the final one, I'm going to give you guys the opportunity to see if you want to switch anything around.
No. This is not how you play keep 4, cut 4. We ain't no switching.
No. This is how I'm playing keep 4, cut 4
choices.
this time around. You're confident in your choices?
I'm keeping my choices.
So both of you are keeping this last one. Gentlemen.
Why do I have a feeling he's going to make this podcast?
Is it me?
This is what I call a transition, gentlemen. I'm not going to tell you the name.
Oh, hold on, I know.
But I'm going to tell you. I resign as HC of the NYJ, scrawled on a cocktail napkin after being introduced as the head coach when Bill Parcells left. Bye-bye, Bill Belichick. Hello, Al Groh. And the rest follows suit. You could argue that this was the real turning point and the real start of the Jets' curse, because 9-time Super Bowl winner Bill Belichick spurned the Jets at the altar after the prenup was signed, and therefore leaving to go join the hated rival New England Patriots in a flurry. Not even with a handwritten note. HC of the NYJ.
I think we made the right choice. This is a keep.
Well, I mean, look, it is the greatest symptom, but it is a symptom. It's not their fault. They're cursed. It's the first thing that ever happened on the Woody Johnson docket. You know, it's just, and look, as my favorite band says, if you can treat the symptoms but not affect the cause, it's quite a lot like trying to treat a gunshot wound with gauze.
Ooh,
doesn't work. So, yeah, I mean, it's a symptom, but if out of all the symptoms that you've mentioned, this is the one that I would have kept no matter what.
Okay.
I mean, I definitely would have kept this. I just think and because we know Bill Belichick and what he's accomplished, some people apparently don't know what he's accomplished, but because we know what he has accomplished, it really goes to show. But like, even take away, put it in a vacuum. A young guy at the time, successful defensive coordinator in this league, right? Successful. Was already a head coach once. This was going to be his second head coaching opportunity.
He was the head coach in waiting too. Don't forget about that.
Yeah. That's what I'm saying. Like he was the head coach of the Cleveland Browns. We're the Cleveland Browns. This was going to be in theory, his second job. And again, even going that far back, there's no guarantee in professional sports in this world that you get a second opportunity at things, right? And he left. He like that needs to be the context. He just outright dipped, left the Jets, did not care, no qualms, and became the head coach and much, much more for the New England Patriots, for your division rival. And just that alone, him leaving you for a division rival, that alone, it says a lot. Everything after that is just continue. No, come. I would have kept this no matter what.
Okay. That's what. That's how it is. So to rack up the reason for the Jets' pain, you've kept the coaches since Rex Ryan, Joe Namath, and Bill Belichick, and then you've split. Jurg, you've kept Ryan Fitzpatrick. Justin, you've kept the sentimental Doug Bryan. Where you've cut was the Jets fan base, Sheldon Silver and Joseph Bruno, and then you had your split between Doug Bryan and Ryan Fitzpatrick, but you also cut Darian Gordon, who I think is a pretty decent poll for, the Testaverde, nightmare that followed suit. Again, just to reiterate the point, Tom Tupa was the emergency quarterback in week 1 in 1999. And if I recall, played pretty darn well, for being a punter who hadn't thrown the ball since high school.
Yeah, no, the real reason though is that Namath thing. I mean, I might even say that's the reason that Woody Johnson got hired.
It just all
Because
goes
if
back.
it's not,
it's the thing that
not
killed
Namath,
Leon
it
Hess.
is Woody.
R.I.P. Leon Hess.
But I think it's the deal with the devil.
It all goes back to the
It all
deal
goes
you
back
make
to 1969.
with the devil. Nice.
Greatest year in New York sports history.
And so we finished talking 1969 on episode number 169. What a devious keep 4 cut 4.
I'm gonna go to bed now for 6 days.
Oh my goodness.
And we'll see you next time, Justin. Another guy's going to be going to bed for a while here. I was going to save this for last, but we might as well just bring it up now because it's already been referenced here. Bill Belichick, who we just brought up in the Jets keep 4 cut 4, was not elected to be a first ballot Hall of Famer.
I'm gonna boycott this podcast. We're talking about Patriots Super Bowls and Jets curses and Bill Belichick should be a Hall of Famer. What did I do to you guys?
Well,
who am I to you?
Seeing as how you also kind of made your own deal with the devil to finally win your own pick challenge.
Alone. There's not a devil in the world that'll claim that.
I was going to say, did you make a deal with the devil to get the pick challenge, and this is just the chaos that happens after the fact?
No. Look, guys, I'm thankful to be who I am, where I am at this point, and just
heavy is the hand, Justin. Heavy is the hand.
Okay, and next season I'm gonna get a crown.
Heavy
a crown.
Calm down there, big dog. Heavy are the hands that held the pens that clearly screwed up with Hall of Fame voting. The fact that even just before we started this podcast, I see a post from CBS Sports and NFL on CBS. Voters may be removed. Statement on media reports related to Hall of Fame class of 2026. From Canton, Ohio. The Pro Football Hall of Fame understands and respects the passionate reaction of many fans, media members, and enshrinees of the Hall itself in light of published reports regarding the voting results of the class of 2026. It's that very passion that propels the game. The Hall also respects the members of the selection committee when they follow the selection process by laws. It is an honor to serve as a selector. Each year, the Hall reviews the selection process and the composition of the 50-person selection committee. Apparently not. If it is determined that any members violated the selection process bylaws, they understand action will be taken. That could include the possibility that such selectors would not remain a member of the committee moving forward. The selection of a new class is the most important duty the Hall of Fame oversees each year, and the integrity of that process cannot be in question. First off, if someone's being paid to make the selection committee, where can I apply? Because let me tell you something right now. A, I'll take the job. B, if I could do it remotely, hell yeah. And C, whoever on this, I'm sorry, maybe we may have to go quick on this since we went along on that. We do have 4 new head coach hirings to discuss here. I'm keeping it a buck. Like, there is no world where Bill Belichick shouldn't have been the first ballot Hall of Fame head coach. In no way, shape, or goddamn form should the definition, you could say whatever you want. You could say Brady, you could say XYZ, you could make as many excuses. You could say that they won as much as they did because it was the AFC East. You could say XYZ, this, that, and third. He, here and there, he said, she said, up and down, side to side, like a roller coaster. I don't care. He is a Hall of Famer. He is a first ballot Hall of Famer. He is, even if he's not your cup of tea, he is the most winningest head coach in the history of this league. And if you include the 2 Super Bowls as a coordinator, he is the most winningest person of all. Like, it is so... This guy's play call sheet, not as a head coach, as a defensive coordinator, is in the Hall of Fame. But he's not... Come on. No, there is... I'm not entertaining it. There is no reason in any way, shape, or form, unless you're trying to rage bait, which if you are, pick something new and pick something good, because this ain't it. This is nowhere near it. There is no reason whatsoever why Bill Belichick should not have been a first ballot Hall of Fame selection. Even with us talking on this podcast, all the times we have discussed voters, they may miss things, we may disagree, and we've had our issues with AP voters when it comes to individual awards. I've said my piece about the NFL when it comes to that and other sports as well. This is the biggest like, you want to talk about a joke in the modern. This is worse than Ichiro not getting the unanimous vote. Like,
Yeah.
this is ridiculous. This is ridiculous because, once again, however you want to slice it and dice it, off the field does not matter. What you did after your NFL career does not matter. We can have fun and we can make the memes about what Bill Belichick and the collegiate ranks have been. Totally fine. That's for the College Football Hall of Fame. That's not for the Professional Football Hall of Fame, where you deliberately have a different Hall of Fame, where with basketball, the entire thing, if you had enough international success, if you had enough collegiate success, you could be a Hall of Famer. You could be a decent, a strong player. And if you had a Hall of Fame career, if you did enough with the other stuff, it could make you from maybe you should have been second or third ballot to being a first ballot Hall of Famer. There is no reason why a 6-time head coach champion should not be first effing ballot. No reason. And if the only logical excuse that you could make is that if for some reason it's out there in inner circles, people think that one day Bill Belichick could return to NFL head coaching, then don't put him on the ballot. Because this is a ridiculous, this is a stain on the Hall of Fame. And if I'm the person making the selection committee, if you did not vote Bill Belichick to move on, you are off the selection committee. Because the greatest disrespect, you both have definitely seen these reels and these memes. The comment of "you don't know ball." I'm sorry, bro. You don't know ball. You don't know ball if you think Bill Belichick is not a first ballot Hall of Fame coach. You're absolutely ridiculous.
Okay, let me jump in here for a second because there is something to this further that meets the eye. That while I'm not defending those who didn't vote for Belichick to get into the Hall of Fame on the first ballot, I am going to do something that mirrors what they're doing, but kind of highlights something. Because there's one confirmed no voter out there that we know of. And it's Vi Gregorian of the Kansas City Star.
Of course.
So here's what we know. What we know is that 40 of the 50 voters on the committee have to vote yes for you to go into the Hall of Fame. That's an 80% rate. That's the highest rate of any Hall of Fame committees that are out there. The Baseball Hall of Fame, for example, is 75% of the vote. That's how Andrew Jones snuck in this year. And I say snuck in because I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. If you have to go 9 years before you can be in the Hall of Fame, you ain't a Hall of Famer, dude. You're Hall of Very Good at best. And that's also a bitter Mets fan talking to a Braves guy, but neither here nor there. When it comes to Bill Belichick and it comes to what they were voting on, the Pro Football Hall of Fame committee has to pick 3 of 5 senior members, not modern era guys. Like, it wasn't Bill Belichick or Larry Fitzgerald. It wasn't Bill Belichick or Drew Brees. It wasn't like that. It was Bill Belichick or Robert Kraft. It was Bill Belichick or Roger Craig, L.C. Greenwood, Ken Anderson. It was that 5, and you're only allowed to pick 3 of those 5. Now, this is more the point that I'm trying to make. Do I agree that Bill Belichick should have been a Hall of Famer first ballot? Yes, I do agree with that. But it's a highlight testament of the system that there is that is broken. The reason for Gregorian gave in voting for, because if you think he didn't vote for, that's bad that he won't vote for Belichick, he also didn't vote for Kraft. He voted for Anderson, Craig, and Greenwood. And his justification, what he put out there, is not I'm a Kansas City guy, so F the Patriots. I will read for you verbatim what he said.
Oh, I want to hear this.
Okay. All of that went into why I felt duty-bound to vote for the most richly deserving seniors who most likely won't ever have a hearing again as senior candidates enter the pool and fresh cases get made for others. Meanwhile, Belichick is inevitable soon, as he should be. I understand why people are offended that he isn't getting in the first moment he can. In the end, though, I felt more compelled by what I perceived to be last chances and looming lost causes within the system as we have it, a system I hope the Hall will see fit to change now. He's standing on a pedestal, and I agree this is not the way to do it, but let me spin it in a different way to kind of give a certain aspect to it that creates a different perspective in your mind. I'm not trying to dissuade you into changing your beliefs. I'm just going to create a different intrinsic link if I can here. Just go with me for a second. It took Drew Pearson 31 years to get into the Hall of Fame. You know? It's taken some guys multiple years, and unfortunately, those guys are no longer with us. So the Hall of Fame will then call the kin of the guy or of the person and then tell them, hey, we finally elected your father into the Hall of Fame. And the first thing that most of them say is, thank you for this honor, but I wish he was here to see it. I wish he was here to kind of memorialize this moment as well. In a case where, to Gregorian's point, if you do have more senior members coming in and you knock out the guys that are, fading away because their legacies are kind of forgotten by the modern recency bias, but then all of a sudden you rekindle your memories of L.C. Greenwood or of Roger Craig, who was one of the best running backs of the 80s, was the running back equivalent of Joe Montana on those Niners teams in the 80s. I do kind of understand that point of wanting to get those older guys in first. That's why when we do our Hall of Fame talk, I always put guys like Torrey Holt in first, because I always think Marvin Harrison ran because Torrey Holt walked, in a sense. So that's it. You know what I mean. It's kind of like that aspect of
No, I was more thinking of the fact that they played relatively close in their careers. But I get what you're saying.
But you get what I'm saying. So it's kind of like that, where it's like his reasoning, again, recency bias out of it, is that if you forget the guys who came before the guys that are recency bias, you're kind of doing a disservice to the legacy of the Hall of Fame that speaks to allowing those stories and those players who paved the way for what football is now to then be able to have their stories told. Again, if that's a veiled way of him coming up with saving face for, I didn't vote for Belichick and Kraft because I don't like the Patriots, fine be it. You wove a great story. That's why you're a writer for the Kansas City Star. But if that's the truth in an asset, then yes, one, the system does need to change. But two, it does speak to that idea of pushing aside the elders to get the newer class in there. And I do kind of understand that aspect of it in a way. Don't necessarily agree with it. But if that's your platform, I'll give it to you that that's your platform that I can respect.
Two things can be true.
Of course.
I feel like the last couple of years when we've done the Hall of Fame stuff, we have deliberately said on the show, it's not correct, it's not proper, and it needs to be fixed for the modern era. Absolutely. Because the thing is, at the end of the day, every couple of years for every single sport, you need to redefine what determines a player being a Hall of Fame caliber player for your sport. You cannot have the same beliefs in 1990 with voting for guys as you can now in the year 2026. So I agree with that. If we just strictly kept it on that, I think we're all in agreement on that point.
Yeah.
Here's the one thing I'm going to disagree with. I'm going to add my own quarter in the swear jar here. Fuck recency bias. 6 rings as a head coach. Where are the other head coaches with 6 rings? In the modern era. I do not say this. This is not a shot to any of the legacy names. I do not know my NFL legacy as much as I know my F1 stuff or NHL. So I will deliberately say that. I'm not saying this against Roger Craig. I'm not saying against any of the other distinguished people that were on that list that Bill Belichick was on. This is not a disrespect or shot at them. I agree that in certain cases, if it makes enough sense that sure, okay, recent, like, yes, you do want to give it to, and like you said, Rick, I think there is something, because we saw it in NHL within the last decade or so, like the concern that guys may not get in, especially in a sport like similar sport, like sister sport of hockey, how physical it is, how like these injuries take a toll on you in your later years. Guys who were Hall of Fame players should get in. And it pisses me off with the NHL Hall of Fame, the Hockey Hall of Fame, that guys, some of them have to wait so long when they shouldn't have. I do see that, and I agree with that with the NFL. I'm sorry, Bill, like, this is 6 Super Bowl rings. Can I read just numbers really quick? I'm just going to read them sequentially. And if you figure out what the numbers are, gold star. Here are the numbers. And I'm going to start from a certain year to help me out here. 11, 9, 14, 14, 10, 12, 16, 11, 10, 14, 13, 12, 12, 12, 12, 14, 13, 11, 12. And that's the end. There's 4 other numbers after that aren't so sterling.
I know where those are, and I also know that, listen, I agree with you that he should just get into the Hall of Fame on the basis of having 11 wins with Matt freaking Castle all by himself.
That in and of itself is a Hall of Fame word. No, like here's the thing: we can agree on all things. Should the voting system change? Yes. Should there be a couple more people being inducted? Yes. May this finally be the thing that does it? Who knows? But at the end of the day, suffice it to say, for all the beef that people said that there was between Brady and Belichick, and maybe of course there still is. I'm certain maybe in the background some personal feelings. Tom Brady's smart enough to say, "What are you doing?" He said it in the Tom Brady way.
Yeah.
But he basically said, "What are you doing?" Mm-hmm. Like, I'm sorry. It's just like it makes no sense to me. It just from a straight up football perspective. And I'm sorry. I'm putting in, unless you were one of the owners that started your respective league or then made a significant thing to save a team, save the league. I'm not hooting and hollering to get owners in the NFL, in any Hall of Fame. Right. Like I know they do not have as many championships as Robert Kraft does, but please, like, bear with me here for a second. The Arisons in Miami, I don't care if they've been the owners since day one with the Heat. They're not going in the NBA Hall of Fame before a ton of guys, Heat players or not. I don't care. Robert Kraft has this cachet because of Belichick and Brady. They're going in the Hall of Fame before him. They should, at least. So, like, again, if we want to tear into the Hall of Fame voting process for the next half hour, I'm totally cool with it. But we all want to go reasonably sleep.
Well, just so you're caught up, LC Greenwood was a member of the Steel Curtain in Pittsburgh, one of the best defensive lines in the game. He passed away of kidney failure in 2013, so he's no longer with us in a sense. So it's kind of one of those, like, it's a legacy honoring of like who the man is and kind of what he contributed to that defensive line, from there. Roger Craig, talked about, who he was with the Niners. When I talked about Marvin Harrison and Torrey Holt, Roger Craig did something that only Marshall Faulk and Christian McCaffrey have done, and he was the first one to do it. 1,000 yards rushing and receiving in the same season. Yeah. So that kind of, that.
Again, I just want to restate, I'm not doing this to poo-poo on their legacies.
No.
This is just the fact that the Hall of Fame body is so clearly flawed. Agreed. Even though we have the one definitive name so far, there's definitely other people that obviously didn't put him on there. And I'm mainly just basing this off of the skits and the jokes I've seen. Right. Is Bill Polian on the selection committee?
Yes, he is.
You know damn well he left Bill Belichick off because he's petty. Because at the end of the day, everything, AP voters, referees, and selection committee people are petty effing people. And it would not surprise me. I'm not saying he did, but if Bill Polian did leave Bill Belichick off, would not surprise me in any way, shape, or form.
Well, so
this is the same guy that said Lamar Jackson could not be a quarterback in the NFL, who became a two-time MVP quarterback.
So let me just finish up the point about the other candidates that are there in the senior committee. But I do want to come back to a Polian thing because you mentioned something very quickly. Ken Anderson of the Bengals, not the wrestler Ken Anderson. He was the 1981 MVP, Offensive Player of the Year, and Comeback Player of the Year. 4-time Pro Bowler quarterback for the Bengals. 32,000 passing yards, et cetera from there. Bengals franchise leader in passing yards, really kind of saved football in Cincinnati because the Bengals were struggling at the time. So those are the three other names that are there. You know about Robert Kraft, you know about Bill Belichick, you know what they have done. It is a clear mandate from the Hall of Fame that you cannot, in any circumstance, vote for or against somebody for the Hall of Fame based on off-field contributions or off-field things. It's a mandate. So let me to your point about Polian, fine, agreed, but I guarantee you that there are going to be some voters that are going to lose their whole voting credentials, and I think one or two might be because of Belichick's relationship with Jordan Hudson. I feel like there's going to be some negativity on that end and all of that nonsense.
And again, this voting should have been figured out after T.O. wasn't a first ballot Hall of Famer. Like, personal feelings about T.O. aside, his antics with the media, his antics on the field, you cannot look at the peak of Terrell Owens' career and say that isn't one of the 5 greatest wide receivers that have ever stepped foot on an NFL field.
Well, there's a reason. There's a reason why Albert Bell's not in the Baseball Hall of Fame, because he did not like the media. The media did not like him. But you could not deny that in the 80s or 90s, Albert Bell was one of the best hitters in pro baseball. But again, when you leave the voting to the writers and to the media and to people who have never played a down of football in their entire life and are only watching from that perspective, you are going to have some monumental errors, like not giving Ichiro a unanimous vote, not putting Bell into the Hall of Fame, waiting forever to get some of these hockey guys into the Hall of Fame,
Yeah.
and this one particularly as well.
I want Justin to have his turn, so I will take a back seat here because I do want him to speak. But my thing is, this is just my belief. I think you can have individuals who never played the game be a part of things like this, but you need to fucking vet them. There's my second one. You need to vet them. Like, I'm trying to think of like a notable never played a single bounce in their career or threw a pass in their career, like professional journalist that I would try. Like, okay, he's had votes. I don't know if he has an MVP vote, but like basketball, Ernie Johnson. I think Ernie would do the due diligence to put the best vote out there, whether it's for an individual award for like a defensive player of the year, most improved, or even if I don't know if he's had Hall of Fame vote in the past. I trust a guy like Ernie Johnson to do the due diligence because he will give the game respect. You can have guys that will give the game respect. You also have guys who played that don't know a bleep from apple butter when it comes to the game as well. Like, there needs to be a healthy match. I'm trying to hold off on the swearing here. I don't want to break the all-time record, but like, you can have a mix.
My record.
Is it right? You can have a mix. And that's my thing. Like again, I'm all for tearing into the Hall of Fame voting. And I'm sure when the class comes out, we'll have more to say because we had issues with the voting last year in terms of just the players that came in. And look, at the end of the day, this is something that should be changed. Is it going to be changed now? Who knows? Probably not. Does Bill Belichick care about this? Probably not. I think we've shown more passion and detail on this podcast than Bill Belichick has probably shown about this since the news broke, which goes to show. But I don't know. That's my thoughts.
Should have been in. Plain and simple. We can sit here and we can make excuses and we can say, this is why this is why that. Dude should have been in. I'm not going to sit here and sing the praises of a dude that's tortured me for the past 30 years. I'm just going to say, what are we doing here?
And Justin is more qualified for a vote just based off of that. This man has kept his football team from winning, and even he understands, yeah, he should be in the Hall of Fame.
I can make excuses left and right. He cheated here, he did this there. He like on the field, off the field. And here's the thing, I also do think that off the field matters. Not to, a huge extent, but like if you're really making a bad name for the game, then it's probably going to take you a little bit longer. That's an important spot to your legacy as a football mind, head coach, player, whatever. That affects your long-standing career, in my mind. But that's not what happened here. Let's be real.
Yeah.
Should have been in.
Should have been in.
Should be in now.
Yeah. Should be in now. Should have been in. Should be getting a gold jacket later this year.
You want to be real?
I hope Bill Belichick is petty. He's not, but I hope he's petty to where he does his own personal Hall of Fame induction somewhere outside of Canton, because just double middle finger to them, like the man. All right, let's move on from this before we keep on going. Just fix your voting for awards. Fix your voting for your Hall of Fame. Fix the way that you see the Hall of Fame. Like, I appreciate certain, whether it's actual analysts on TV or even certain podcasters who have like pretty good platforms, and how they go about changing their point of view, because despite what people might think, you're allowed to change your point of view on things. And I think the way that most of us, the educated ones at least, look at Hall of Fame players is different now than it was 3 years ago, 5 years ago, 7 years ago. The unfortunate thing is that the people that have the power have kept the same mindset for 20, 25, 30 years. And I feel this way about a lot of other more important societal aspects as well. There gets a certain point, I think you should be aged out. I think the game has passed you by in certain instances. This is just one of those examples.
Like Congress,
CEOs, everything. Like, you should be aged out at some point. But speaking of which, these guys aren't going to get aged out because a lot of them are new. More head coach hirings, ladies and gentlemen. What a way to transition. So from a head coach not getting into the Hall of Fame to a couple guys who are going to get their first or second head coaching opportunity. Although I actually have these four. I'm trying to think of the retread off we'll figure it out as we go through this list. 4 more head coaches have been hired since last time. One of them we sort of broke on the show, just in terms of reports last week. So let's get straight into it, boys. 10 ultimately ended up being 10 head coaching opportunities ended up being made available. 4 filled last week, 4 more filled this week. 2 remain, those 2 being the Las Vegas Raiders and the Arizona Coyotes. Logical for both instances to be waiting. Arizona just because they never make a decision early, and Vegas because with the number 1 overall pick, you should take your time to make the right head coaching hire, to say the very least. Let's go to the new set of hired head coaches. The Cleveland Browns, the Pittsburgh Steelers, where is my list and why is it not in chronological order? The Ravens, the Browns, the Bills all made their head coach hirings, and the Steelers. Oh, there we go. So the 3 AFC North teams that all fired their head coaches have hired them. And the Steelers added themselves in there. Or, no, not the Steelers. The Bills added themselves in there after them being the most recent of the firings for head coaching. Now the most recent hirings. Justin, I'll give dealer's choice to you because I think there's a logical thing to go for any of these because you have one of these hirings. We briefly mentioned it last week that was a strong possibility, wasn't fully confirmed. We have one of these that is now sowed unrest in an organization. I'll give you a hint on which one it is. You have a slight surprise hiring just in terms of who this team is making the guy. And then you have another hiring which fans are totally over the moon about. Sense the sarcasm. So Justin, I'll leave it to you. Dealer's choice. Which of these 4 hirings do you want to give your take on? Whether good, bad, indifferent about them. And we will follow your lead.
I guess the first one that comes to mind would probably be the most recent one, which was today, which was Todd Monken, correct?
Yes.
That was today?
Yes.
And it's just surprising in terms of it's not a name that I expected to hear. I don't know why. I mean, in theory, he's been, is this his second year as the offensive coordinator for the Ravens?
Second or third, yeah.
And statistically, they've been an excellent offense. Obviously, there's been issues about when they should and should not perform. And it does help to have a Hall of Fame running back and a multiple-time MVP quarterback, which is something that the Browns don't have. But it is the game that they would like to run. It's weird to me that they went offensive for the second time. Usually, you maybe go back and forth. But it also makes sense that their defense has been so strong historically that, why overload a good thing? You know what I mean? Their defense can't really get that much better. So make sure you bring in the right defensive guy and bring in someone to fix the offense that hasn't worked in 30 years. So I get it. I'm curious as to think who else was on the list. Why was this the move they made? I mean, they seemingly went after a guy that no one was going after. Did he have other interviews? I haven't heard his name at all.
The predominant tie-in was that the belief was that he was going to become the offensive coordinator for the Giants and follow John Harbaugh there because he was under Harbaugh for 3 seasons in Baltimore. And this would
be the only reason that he wouldn't go.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Better opportunity. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to think of any move that the Browns ever make because they're almost like the Jets. But
we will have to do a keep 4 cut 4 of them.
I liked Stefanski when they hired him. I think it was the right move at the time. Unfortunately, things didn't really pan out for him in the way that they did. I mean, they were good at the beginning. He kept them pseudo-relevant in certain seasons. But yeah, it just feels like more of the same.
Yep. By the way, Rick, I'm sure this came on your radar. Todd Monken was the Cleveland Browns offensive coordinator in 2019 when they had Freddie Kitchens as the head coach. Mm-hmm. Delightful detail. Because when I saw one of the graphics I saw was "Welcome back, Todd Monken," and I was like, "Welcome back." Huh?
Yeah.
Then you do research and you realize he was there in 2019. Banner season, of course, for the Cleveland Browns.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, Rick, your thoughts on Todd Monken, and then I'm gonna just keep dealer's choice in it all day. After this, you give your thoughts on Todd Monken or on your next episode.
I can. You know what I'm going to do? Actually, I'm going to reserve my thoughts for Todd Monken for the end of the show because I have a tie-in that I want for my
Red Podium.
You guessed it. So I'm gonna reserve my thoughts on that one because the hiring I'm gonna go get it. Let me get into that later. I think the Monken hiring is also pretty dumb. I mean, Jim Schwartz is right there, and he's the guy that everybody wanted to be in Cleveland, basically. But for one reason or another, I literally think it was a case of, like I texted you guys in the chat, where the Browns just wanted to be petty and they
Yeah.
wanted to just hire the guy because the Ravens lost their head coach and they didn't want anybody to go with the Ravens guy. So, it's just the Browns being petty. It's just Jimmy Haslam being Jimmy Haslam.
It amazes me that there is no external, no written rule of a salary cap for your coaching staff. There in any of the sports, it's not. You can pay your head coaches and then your assistant coaches after, as much as you need, whether it's to hire them and then to keep them.
Yep.
And maybe at the end of the day, this is Todd Monken really wanted to be a head coach. Cool. I respect that. He wants to give it a go.
Yeah, but it didn't work so well for him the last time that he was the head coach.
So this was my next point. Look, some people just need to be humbled. And this could have been a case where I think the succession plan should have been, and we're seeing the backlash of it now, Jim Schwartz should have became the head coach of this team. And your offensive coordinator, if you could, him and you agree as an organization, you pay that offensive coordinator, essentially make him the highest paid OC in the league, if not second. Because at the end of the day, look, sports, it's a business. You got to spend some money if you want to try to win. You got to spend some money. There's no cap on the coaching staff. If you want to make your guy the highest paid OC in the league, do it.
It's wild to think about that, but you're absolutely right. Is that there's no limitations on any of that?
Because you know what I always think of, Rick, in Carolina in NHL. I'm really going to other sports today.
Hello.
But Rod Brindamore, he has been one of the biggest things of why he's been rumored to be leaving the organization the last 2-3 years, in the offseason, is because that he wants his assistant coaches to get paid. And first off, I'd love a guy like that as my boss. He wants me to get paid more. I love him. But he wants his guys to be more properly compensated for their roles because he also understands their importance in the organization and helping him run things in Carolina. So then I just look at that with every single, and I'm sure head coaches in all leagues have this affinity for their assistants and their guys. And at the end of the day, some people just want to become head coaches. You can't stop them. But in a case like this with Todd Monken, if it was between Jim Schwartz and another guy and pay a little more for as that guy being the OC or Todd Monken as your head coach, are we really going to be surprised if in a year and a half from now this proves to be the wrong decision from Cleveland?
I would not be surprised to see John Harbaugh kind of swoop in and see if Jim Schwartz can run offense, on the Giants
or defense.
Well, they have their defensive guy already from the Titans. I mean, I'm thinking like Jim Schwartz is versatile enough where he can run a few different areas. I think.
Make him your assistant head coach. They make up positions all the time on these coaching staffs.
Easy. I think we saw also in this one the best internal promotion in Buffalo. Joe Brady was a no-brainer. Every time that you watched a Buffalo game or heard a Buffalo, broadcast, all you heard was whenever the Bills had the ball on offense, how the play calling by Brady was fantastic. How the offensive schemes that he drew up were second to none. How Josh Allen was moving fluidly because of the schemes of Brady. And keep in mind for a while that this Buffalo team, they had Ken Dorsey as their offensive coordinator, and that was not very good over there. So Brady was a hot commodity and a name that I think a lot of teams would have looked for had McDermott stayed there. But I got my cake because McDermott got fired, and so therefore the Buffalo made the right call. So it's interesting when you look at those two things. Those are two of the most unpredictable owners, I would say, in the NFL. One stuck to his guns of being unpredictable, and the other one actually made a pretty solid decision in hiring and elevating Joe Brady from the OC role to the head coaching role. 5-year deal. So now you have to, again, the window is slightly open a little bit more for Buffalo, I would say. It's still tightly closed, but it's open. It's opening a crack. If Brady can figure out how to keep Josh Allen and keep this offense moving, because the coaching really wasn't the issue as a personnel thing, but McDermott had to go. They had to make waves. They weren't winning with him. Now let's see if Joe Brady can take them that next step further, because that's what they hired him to do. And I mean, I think he's the right guy for that position. So I liked that hire from Buffalo. I think it was a very smart maneuver on their part. You're not inspired by it?
I'm not. I think the offense has had issues. They've been hit or miss. Joe Brady was better than who they had hired. There was definitely an improvement from the last offensive coordinator in between him and Dable. I forget who it was.
Ken Dorsey.
It was Dorsey.
Yeah, it was obviously a problem. I know you just said it, and I still couldn't remember. But what does that do for you? I mean, there have just been issues with this team. What does keeping the same coaching staff do for you in Buffalo in any way?
Continuity with your top guy, maybe? I don't know. That's
Continuity hasn't worked.
Well,
It hasn't worked.
Listen, I think it's better than they brought in Philip Rivers for a head coaching interview. That would have been a cluster.
I'm not sitting here saying that Philip Rivers would have been the right guy. I'm saying continuity has not worked, and they would have been better off trying to shoot a shot like at John Harbaugh, like the Giants did, or some of these other top coaching candidates, than going with more of the same. Because more of the same in Buffalo is not the answer in my mind. You're not taking a step forward with more of the same. And unless you don't feel like winning a Super Bowl, you're just worried about playoff wins and appearances, then fine. More of the same sounds great. But more of the same is not the answer in my mind.
It's also really curious to me that now we're in this stage of it where the attractive names that were there were, the Rams coordinators, Kubiak and Shula. But now because the Rams went on that run to the NFC title game, all the coaching spots are pretty much done and gone. So it's like they were hot names and they barely got to interview because they were busy coaching their teams. Meanwhile, you have the other guys that are all over there, like, oh yeah, like Jeff Hafley, for example. Jeff Hafley was a guy that I think wouldn't have gotten a head coaching position had Kubiak or Shilhas or Shula been available. I think he would have been passed over for those guys because they wanted those names, but Hafley was available and they made the move.
Well, it also depends, like, sometimes just how strong you got, because Clint Kubiak is still he's still a potential favorite to become the Raiders head coach. And we even saw it last year, Kellen Moore becoming the Saints head coach amidst the Eagles Super Bowl run, which we saw how much they missed him. So, but no, it could go either way. I'm torn. On one hand, this is interesting. Joe Brady is the guy who, of course, his coming out party was the year of the greatest offense that college football has ever seen in the modern era. Yep. With Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson in that crew. Went immediately to the NFL, Carolina for 2 years. Not a great head coach with him. One of the many head coaches that we have fired on this podcast.
Yes,
and then goes to the Buffalo Bills. It bides his time, waits his turn. Ken Dorsey gets fired. He helps. And then, like, the big thing for him, it was more in the 2024 season with the offense that they ran. Brady, like, just reading off of the article that I have, it's like Brady further refined his philosophy from the previous year, which he dubbed everybody eats, resulting in a league record 13 offensive players scoring receiving touchdowns en route to the Bills' 13-4 record and an AFC Championship game appearance in 2024. And he was a finalist for Assistant Coach of the Year last year. So clearly, there's something there. Now, slight step back into
also. I'm sorry. No, finish your thing. I don't need to interrupt.
No. Ultimately, it's just the fact that, really great year there. I feel like everyone in Buffalo took a step back in part because of not winning the division, right? So it's like I'm very like 50-50 on this one. Like this is the right and smart higher internal promotion, but I do see from Justin's perspective why there's because I've said this about other teams in the past. It's like, okay, this hasn't worked. Now you're going to make the new guy in charge from the group that couldn't get it done. Like, and this is first time head coach at the tender young age of 36. I really hope he's been taking notes from Sean McDermott and Ed Orgeron, not Matt Rule, but like those two, because he has to do something that he's never really done before. And look, as much as you want to try to delegate with coordinators as much as you can, and as much as we've said that you can, at some point you got to be the head guy in there. And this is going to be a very interesting challenge for him to try to do.
Here's the thing also, when you say you don't want more of the same, I'm not also convinced that the issue in Buffalo was coaching.
Right.
Because they've seemed to have done a lot with a roster that had a lot of holes.
Yeah.
And continued to have a lot of holes. And seemingly will continue to have a lot of holes. There's a lot of good parts and bright spots to this roster, but year after year, they seemingly have glaring issues.
Yeah.
And sometimes those issues are the same as the year before, and sometimes they're not. and sometimes they're injury concerns, and sometimes they're not. But I would say maybe there might also be some issues with roster construction, which is not necessarily a head coach's job description.
The people went off with when the not Keon Coleman saying anything, but the Keon Coleman interaction question and then subsequent quote from Pagula at the press conference with Bean and him defending Brendan Bean, saying that was not Brendan Bean's decision to bring in Coleman. That was the coaching staff pushing for it, and Bean acquiesced. But then immediately Twitter sleuths took a clip of...
I have lots of suggestions at my job. My boss decides to make the decision, and ultimately it's on him.
Exactly. Like, to me, I'm honestly with Justin in terms of, like, Brendan Bean should have faced a lot more fire. And if it was a decision of it, in the Pagula mind, which is not a mindscape I want to go into, but if we want to try to pick this apart here, the mindset of I can't fire Brandon, I have to fire Sean, because it'd be weirder if I kept Sean but fired Brandon, because then you have a situation where the GM comes in. This is not the head coach.
You either clean house or you don't.
Thank you. That's what I was like. To me, if your problem was with Sean McDermott for whatever reasons, that look, when I'm 50-50 on a head coach actually deserving to be fired or not, maybe they shouldn't have been fired, because I'm all gun-ho on getting rid of head coaches that should.
I had cake for a reason, Jerg.
Yes,
don't take back my cake.
That was your celebration. Whereas Justin and I were asking the questions, and it's just ultimately one of those things of, look, man, yeah, you could fire the head coach. You should probably fire the GM, because here's the thing with GMs. When I always talk about you get a bullet if the guy failed after 2-3 years. You don't get a bullet if you're stuck with a guy for a decade and it didn't work out, and you're part of the reason why it didn't work out. So
let's go.
Now this is the definition now of, Joe Brady better work, because Brendan Bean ain't surviving if this don't work. He is not. So,
and the question is, how many years left do you have of prime Josh Allen? You're going to waste it with this little experiment.
Yeah, because honestly,
I hope it's not a waste. I mean, I don't care if they win or lose.
Exactly.
But for their sake, if I'm a Buffalo Bills fan, I'm hoping this experiment is successful, because you're going to waste another 2 years of Josh Allen in his, prime.
Yeah.
How much longer till he's in his 30s?
He turns 30 this May. So he turns 30 this May.
Not everyone is Tom Brady and plays into their 40s.
Or there's even like
fine. And you can't tell me with Josh Allen's style of play that he's going to last that long. Yeah. He takes hits. He's a running quarterback.
He takes hits. He's played hurt. We know. Let's be real. He probably played hurt this postseason with the hit that he took against Jacksonville, with the way his leg bent. Bro was 100% hurt, but he played. Like, I'm not wishing this upon him. Would we really be surprised if Josh had a legitimate injury next year? Like, Mahomes has finally had his legitimate injury in 2025, right? It's taken him out for a while. I'm
not saying anything.
But would we be surprised?
But in this podcast, we've already accused Mark Messier of doing stuff.
No, you did. Let's clarify that.
I did not. We wish Joe Namath death, apparently, and now we're saying Josh Allen's going to have a cataclysmic injury. What are we doing with our lives?
Chaos. But no, like, look, the biggest comparison of Josh Allen, especially in the last 2 seasons, has been Cam Newton. Now, obviously, he's a better thrower than Cam Newton. But Cam Newton fell off after the MVP year. Now, injuries played a massive role in that. But it starts with minor stuff. It starts with a ding here. It starts with, we're going to rest him a couple extra practices during the week here. That's how it starts. That's legitimately how it starts for a guy like Josh Allen. Like, I hate to say it, because generally speaking, like, he has a chance and he plays 5 more really good seasons. Again, we had this conversation about midway late in the season, right? The Hall of Fame game that we were doing briefly. How ironic. It all ties together. Like, between Lamar and Josh Allen, who's closer to being a Hall of Fame quarterback? Or in this selection committee, probably neither of them. But let's hypothetically say, like, we picked Lamar over Josh. But Josh has a chance to solidify a Hall of Fame case in the next 3-5 years. And if he starts getting hurt, if your poor drafting leads to this, Brendan Bean, like, you guys talk about windows slamming shut, that you almost have to make the argument this is Buffalo's trying to reopen the window rather than keeping it from closing. I think the window could already be closed, and it's up to them to reopen it, because this flawed roster, like Justin has pointed out, still needs a lot more fixes. And new head coach or not, that's not on the head coach to fix. That's the guy that's getting paid to make decisions ultimately.
At what point do you stop running with a broken leg and you sit down to heal. You'll finish the race quicker if you leave yourself a little time to heal than if you try and run through the whole race,
Well, Greg Jennings ran with a broken leg.
You can make all the faces you want at all my analogies, Rick, but it's true.
I didn't realize that I was dealing with Justin Sun Tzu over there. Good Lord, the art of war.
Podcast.
The art of war.
Philosophical now.
If it makes you feel any better, Rick, that song quote was a Fish song, so it's not that deep.
I figured it was a Fish song.
Oh,
I think we who know you better than anybody else know that it was a Fish song. I thought it was Jerry Garcia, but then I was like, no, I don't remember that in Touch of Grey. So it definitely is Fish. Yeah. So
Touch of Grey. What kind of Fish fan? What kind of Dead fan do you think I am?
I'm a basic mainstream Dead fan. I play their music sometimes, but not all the time. But I know you do deep cuts. Makes sense.
So two NFL head coaches hiring that we've discussed. Let's go to the last two. This one was Jerry's
like, leave that music alone.
How dare you?
This is where we fall out of my area of expertise. Jesse Minter is the Baltimore Ravens head coach now. It was reported by the Podfather last week. Breaking news that talks were advanced, and it is official. I mean, look, they went with kind of what has been their MO, their bread and butter. They were staying with a defensive guy, 42 going on 43 years old, was in the Ravens organization from 2017 to 2020, fun fact, went to college for a couple years, been with the Chargers. He went with Jim Harbaugh there. If you want to give the Chargers a compliment, the last 2 years, the defense has been a big part to this regular season success they've had. Postseason's a different story, but a great defense can only do so much in the regular season or in the postseason when the offense ain't doing all they should be. So I think this is a pretty good hiring. I think Jesse Minter interviewed well. I think it didn't surprise me he was going to get a head coaching job either this year or next year. I think he was going to be one of those next guys up, and it's going to be interesting. I don't know if it's been reported or maybe it's just missed my radar. Excuse me for working 50, 60-hour weeks on my job.
How dare you?
But but if he has named his OC yet, or if not, if it's just rumored who the favorite to become his offensive coordinator is, it's going to be interesting to see, because I think that decision is going to play as big a part as any. But I'm interested to see Jesse Minter and how he does. This organization he's familiar with, like I mentioned, history there as a coordinator in the early days of his coaching career. Been with Jim Harbaugh for a couple of years, national championship winner in college. So give him a shot. I don't have a reason to decry this as a terrible hire on surface level. I think he had credentials and he took advantage and became a head coach. I think we were saying, like, would Jim Harbaugh love to have kept him? Probably. But guys have ambitions. He was probably going to be one of those guys that was always going to leave no matter what.
I'm more curious to see what they do with Zachary Orr as their defensive coordinator, because I feel like Minter is a guy who would prefer to call his own plays. So that might mean that Orr could be on the outs. I obviously, they do need a new offensive coordinator, somebody who can work with Lamar Jackson. Maybe you just elevate T. Martin to that role. He's already the quarterback coach. He already knows how Lamar ticks and how he works. So, but I'm more curious about things on the defensive side of the ball. Nnamdi Madubuike has already said he's going to come back this year for Baltimore. That's a big name to have on your front line. But this Ravens team, they needed an overhaul on defense. But the problem is, too, it's also injuries that are the big key. It seems like every year we talk about the Ravens, we talk about somebody having an injury, whether it's Marlon Humphrey, Jalen Armour-Davis. On the offense, it was their entire running back room one season, basically. So conditioning is a big key. And I think that Minter's a guy who will work to condition his guys really well. Keep in mind that, after he left the Ravens the first time, before he went to Michigan, he was at Vanderbilt for a year. Then they were 2-10, yes, but Vanderbilt is a no-nonsense school. That's a conditioning gauntlet of a school. So this is a guy who knows how to make a team run and make a team physically fit enough for hardcore battle. I think that Minter's going to bring that kind of fortress mentality to this Ravens team, and I like it. But again, I'm questioning whether or not we're going to see a different defensive coordinator now too, because I think him and Zachary Orr are probably going to clash, because Minter's going to want to call his own plays, I have a feeling.
Or at least have a guy that he can trust to do it from time to time, but he still wants to be heavily involved on that side.
Well, we can't all be Wink Martindale with Aaron Glenn, obviously,
Yeah. And I did see a report saying that Zachary Orr was taking an interview with the Dallas Cowboys for a role on their staff.
Oh, well, there you
Should be to fire Matt Eberflus, but we'll see.
Or probably Schottenheimer, but
well, they're not going to go that far. Jerry Jones not doing that. You are.
I tried.
Justin, any comments on Minter before we move on to the last head coach hiring?
No, I mean I like it. I think it's we got to return a little bit to the days of those Baltimore bullies.
Yeah.
I think that's got to come back. I think that's what Lamar's missing in life.
More than fair. If that defense can become extremely stout, stay healthy, it'll be interesting. And to be fair, there probably are a couple guys out there on the market that if Orr does end up leaving, that there are guys with defensive coordinator experience. Hey, Rick, Jim Schwartz.
Hey!
If he's able to get out of his contract in Cleveland, him, Raheem Morris, again, second head coaching tenure in Atlanta didn't work, but he was a DC for a little bit. He was both an OC and a DC before he got the head coaching chance in Atlanta, so he could do that as well. There's some guys out there that you can pursue, so it'll be interesting to see. All right. The Pittsburgh Steelers have decided to have as their head coach a guy with the first name Mike, who has a pretty good overall 500, well above 500 record in his coaching career, but has not won a Super Bowl in well over a decade. Now, you might be confused. Wait, didn't they allow Mike Tomlin to go / he stepped down? You're right. They hired Mike McCarthy. To the delight of Pittsburgh Steelers fans everywhere, to say the very least. Yes, Mike McCarthy got that warm Yinzer welcome that they were always going to give him from Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania himself. He was just a lad. He's just a lad that grew up in Pittsburgh. Now he gets to the boyhood dream to become the Steelers head coach. I mean, the Steelers fans have said so much. It's just interesting, the discourse. If they're ready for another 15-year head coaching tenure where Mike McCarthy will be coaching well into his 70s, good luck. That's all I can say. I don't know. I'm not shocked he got one final job as a head coach. I'm kind of shocked it was with the Steelers, but maybe I shouldn't be shocked. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about this. I mean, I want to make jokes about it mainly. I'm here for the memes when it comes to the Steelers at this point. Remember who was the head coach before Matt Eberflus in Chicago?
Nagy?
Yes. Remember when we made the joke that, the Chicago Bears are trying to save money on new IDs, so they're just hiring the same first name and get rid of change the last name?
Oh, unless the IDs have pictures on them, you can make that joke in Pittsburgh.
You think these teams are going to fork out that kind of dough for picture IDs?
Well, I mean, I prefer you have a color printer if you're using a Xerox or a Kyocera, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah. But no. Rick, your take on Mike McCarthy as the head coach of the Steelers now.
It's the first offensive head coach that the Pittsburgh Steelers have hired since before Chuck Noll in 1969. They haven't had an offensive head coaching mindset since the late 60s on that end. And it's Mike McCarthy of all guys, which is interesting to me. But he's putting together, I think, an all-star staff from what I've gathered. I know that they still have Terrell Austin on staff, but I believe they're looking at Patrick Graham coming over to be the defensive coordinator in Pittsburgh now. And that's a pretty big name to go over to the Steelers to be able to work with Highsmith, Queen, Watt, those guys that are kind of just, getting into their full mode there. I really think that this is a gamble for the Steelers, but I think it's a gamble that could work. I think that they're relying on the homegrown talent, the homegrown nature, but also they're trying to catch the lightning in a bottle that New England had with Mike Vrabel. Because remember, Vrabel took a year off, didn't coach, came back, and this year has been a revelation for them, right? They're in the Super Bowl now. So they're trying to figure out maybe that's the way to do it, is to get a head coach a year out of his first job or a year out of a job to then come back, figure out what he's learned. Maybe he spent more time preparing, more time kind of figuring out new plays and new roles, and then maybe see if he can work it from there. Again, this is a Pittsburgh team that hasn't had a losing season since the Bill Cowher days, right? So it's going to be incumbent on Mike McCarthy to keep doing that. I won't say this is kind of like, hiring Kalen DeBoer in Alabama because, he's a bum. But if Mike McCarthy's first season doesn't end with at least 9 wins, this is already an abject failure. It's going to be interesting to see what happens.
People will call for his head in that job very quickly.
Oh, yeah.
On the first bad season. Yeah. Yeah. You think he told him that, remember when he got the Cowboys job that he's like Jerry Jones had said that Mike McCarthy locked himself in a room for 2 weeks basically and studied NFL offenses and came back in, and Mike McCarthy was like, yeah, no, I didn't do that. Kind of cheekily said it. You think he did the same thing here? That's just how he's going to get all his jobs from now on. Just saying he did research for 2 weeks before he gets them.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, who knows what Jerry does is what he does anymore.
Well,
I don't think Jerry knows what he's doing anymore.
Justin, what do you make of Mike McCarthy being the Steelers head coach?
I think it was the Steelers thing to do.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
No, I think it's a good thing. Look, they're still a storied franchise. They're still a benchmark of what you want your franchise to be. Obviously, you'd like to have more playoff wins than in the last 9 years, but this is the exact opposite of what the Browns did, where they went with more of the same. They changed it up. And this is the first offensive head coach that they had in a long time, as Rick alluded to. It's something that they've needed to fix over the last 9 years. And now the thought is, will McCarthy bring in the right guy to keep this defense at the same caliber while improving the offense? And that's just what they need to move forward. I don't necessarily think that he did a bad job in Dallas. I think that there was a few extenuating circumstances that made it so it wasn't a very good job or a success. But he had that team firing in ways that we hadn't really seen in a long time before that. I think he's got the ability to do that with the Steelers if he can get the right pieces in there. So it's going to be an interesting thing to see if they could at least overcome some of the drafting woes that they have on offense. Because outside of some receivers, they really haven't been able to get the right guys in there drafting-wise. So, yeah, I'm interested to see who they draft, what their quarterback of the future will be going forward, if it is Rodgers, if they decide to go another direction, and how he can improve this team. I will say it's been a long time since we've seen a Steelers head coach not win at least one Super Bowl in their tenure. That being said, this is the first one that I know of that they've hired that already had a Super Bowl win under their belt. So, it's definitely a little bit different. But I think it was the right move for them. I think it was probably the best guy in terms of what they wanted to do. And we'll see what happens with the hometown kid.
Yep. All the dominoes just are going to go from this point on. Now McCarthy's there. He's getting his staff together fully. Who's going to be the quarterback? They have to figure that out. Is Rodgers going to retire? Is he going to make 2026 his last year and stay at from the jump? Are we going to get a 1-year reunion between Rodgers and McCarthy? Is it Will Howard is the young quarterback that they drafted late last year, right?
Yep.
Was Will Howard, is he going to get a legitimate chance to start for the starting job? Or if Aaron Rodgers does decide to walk away from the game, who are you going to try to get to replace? Because you can't walk in with Will Howard being the guy. You can't just be the outright guy. You got to give someone, a chance to challenge him there. What quarterback would Mike McCarthy want to come in? So many questions that will have to be answered at that point. So it'll be interesting to see. I kind of with all these hirings, I want to give a little benefit of the doubt. Okay, what is the general manager going to do to acquiesce, add talent, et cetera, et cetera? That's kind of the main thing. McCarthy, look, I love the memes. I love the jokes. I love that everyone's making the comparisons between him and Tomlin. Because truthfully, their careers are so mirrored. It is kind of crazy. I am willing, and look, I've criticized Mike McCarthy as head coach before on the show, so it's nothing new. But I'm willing to give a slight benefit and wait and see what all gets put together here in Pittsburgh. I'm also willing to bet that, honestly, I could see him getting unlucky next year. DK Metcalf may have had an all right regular season. He's still not eye popping. He's not. They paid him wide receiver one money. He ain't a wide receiver one in this league at all.
I disagree with you there. He had Aaron Rodgers as his quarterback. He had a rough offense with a rough coordinator, and he still had a pretty good season. He had over 1,000 yards, right?
And he punched a guy.
I'm not saying he's as Character is what we're talking about.
I don't know.
On the field play.
It's not just
the
this.
lone bright spot consistently on that team.
It goes back to his time in Seattle for me. I've just been waiting for him to have the season that the best of the best have.
Who's been his quarterbacks? He's had Geno Smith. Come on, you could sit here and
you're
call
muted.
him a ring.
You're muted.
Call him a Ring of Honor guy all you want.
There you go. Thank you, Rick.
Not a Hall of Fame quarterback here.
Anyways, so we'll see what the Steelers are going to do to add. We're just going to play this game the entire night. But no, in all seriousness, we'll see. Like, again, he could get unlucky next year, and if the roster starts breaking down on him, I mean, it's not Mike McCarthy's fault. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see what the Steelers do to try to improve the roster in the offseason. So with that being said, head coaches have been discussed for Hall of Fame. Head coach hirings have been discussed. We have 2 more that could come up in discussion within the next couple of weeks. I think one of, if not both of them, will probably be post Super Bowl hirings. So we'll see what happens there.
I'm hearing some ramblings if you're interested, because I got the Jesse Minter one correct.
Give it to us.
Matt LaFleur to Arizona, or not? Mike LaFleur rather to Arizona.
I was going to say, wait a second.
Mike LaFleur from San Francisco to Arizona
as their head coach.
The rumor that I saw is that it's going to depend on after the Super Bowl which way Clint Kubiak the domino falls, because that's what both teams are supposedly waiting for. They both have meetings scheduled and agreed upon by both teams and the Seahawks and Kubiak to meet some point over the next week during preparations, and then after the fact, whichever way he goes, each team probably has backups. I believe it's for the Raiders, it's Dable, and for Arizona, it is names.
You'll get there.
Kubiak, Shula, Shilhas.
Yeah.
And then, Vegas is an interesting one, because obviously, whoever it's going to be, they're going to have to be a quarterback whisperer for Fernando Mendoza. That's a real interesting one over there.
Yeah.
But you also then have to realize you're working with Mark Davis, whose interview process will always be a PF Chang's.
Well, you just got to hope that the GM is the right guy. Like, for the head coaching issues they've had, I would also argue the general manager issues that Vegas have had for a while now is pretty bad as well. John
Gruden's available.
He said he wants to make one more shot.
And with that, and
Rich Bisaccia.
While we wait for one more Spider 2Y banana to happen, let's finish this bad boy off. Rick,
Spider 2Y banana.
Rant us home with the podium.
Spider 2Y banana. Well,
hey, Spider 2Y banana, man. I was serpentine all over with my coaching staff. I'll tell you what.
I mean, we have to start this as we always do. Today's honorable mention on our rant podium is the Dallas Cowboys, because they're just the joke of a franchise, and all Giants fans will agree that the Cowboys are a joke of a franchise, right? Yes. Thank you. Yes, they are. That's truth. All right. Number 3. I'm going to approach this in a delicate manner, mostly because it is 11:12 at night. Because if I wanted to, I could really scream and yell about this, but there's a reason why the elite in this country are ruining this country. And it's also relating to that thimble-looking trillionaire who needs to not come back from a Blue Origin Harvest space trip in Jeff Bezos. Because how dare you ruin the lives of countless journalists at the Washington Post? For what purpose? To cut back on saving money? You're basically told the Washington Post they're not sending any journalists to the Winter Olympics. You're cutting your wartime correspondency, basically. You've cut jobs from people who are doing fantastic reporting, all in the sake of what exactly? Because you don't like newspapers. Okay, so here's a tip. Don't own everything. Don't buy newspapers. You spend more money to make more plastic surgery for your god-awful wife, and do whatever else you need to do from there. He literally put her visage on a ship. I hope it sinks to the bottom of the ocean, with him on it at some point. And that's a fact. Come on. In all honesty and truth, elitists and billionaires are ruining this country. And they're ruining sports in general. And that's where number 2 comes in. Jimmy Haslam and the Cleveland Browns. How in the world are you going to hire a head coach by doing a Rorschach test or by doing the ink blots and everything? Like, what are we doing here? Why are we doing like 95-page essays on life and the history of whatever to see how good of a coach you'll be? Somebody brought up the idea that coaches should have to write essays after losing games and present them and read them to the media as a way of saying, here's why we lost this game. That's what the Browns are doing. The Browns are basically doing a personality test for how to hire a head coach. And if you're not an INFJ or whatever the damn personality test is, you're not getting the job. Clearly, it's obvious. And it's just stupid for me that you have to stretch to that level of it. And number one happened this week in our area of the world. There was that lovely snowstorm that happened on Sunday, stretching into Monday. And you little sycophant, Zoran Mamdani, decided to go for remote learning for school children. Listen, this is the problem in today's world. We have 4 and 5-year-olds who are logging in on iPads to do God knows what lesson plans because everything is virtual nowadays. Kids need to be kids. They need to go out and play in the snow. They need to go out and ride their bikes and fall and cut their knees and scrape their elbows and learn how to survive. There are children nowadays who have no common sense or no logic because the parents of the world who are not being good parents are the ones sticking them in a restaurant chair with an iPad, basically saying, don't talk to anybody, don't create any kind of nonsense, don't do anything. I cannot stand those parents, and I cannot stand people in our society who think that the best thing to do is to give them computers and make them silent, because, we don't want you to interrupt us while we're at dinner, or we're looking at our phones, so you do something too. Like, no, let kids be kids, man. Let them go sledding down a hill and run into a car. Not a non-moving car, obviously, but let them run into a car. Let them run around. Let them go play baseball with their friends, or let them just go do things. Don't keep them behind the screen walls, because that's how we get Adam Rank in the world then. If they're behind screen walls, it's a problem, So why do we glorify remote learning? It's stupid. There should be no remote learning. There should only be learning from street smarts and doing. And in school, fine. But how about this? Don't give them Chromebooks. They don't need more distractions on the internet than to do their schoolwork. Kids today do not know how to write. They do not know how to use complete sentences or punctuation or, God forgive me, as I had to deal with my students last night, in-text citations in APA formatting. I may sound like a nerd, but there's a point to it. You're in a grad level class and you can't cite? How'd you make it through 4 years of undergrad? It's stupid. Just let kids be kids, man. If it's a snow day, let them go out and build a snowman. Let them have a snowball fight. Let them just be kids. Stop trying to make them into robots, man. Again, if you make them into robots, that's how Adam Gase gets a job. And nobody wants Adam Gase to have a job anymore. By the way, where the hell is Trent Baalke? Does anyone know where he ran off to?
Yeah, he is long gone as far as I'm concerned.
I was going to say
maybe he'll be on this apparent ship that you've put Jeff Bezos on, and that Justin wants Joe Namath to be on, and what a podcast.
No harm upon Joe Namath.
This was, ladies and gentlemen,
and never take notes from Matt Rule.
Never take notes from Matt Rule. More brackets to be coming. And on that note, ladies and gentlemen, this was another edition of the Sports Agents of Chaos podcast. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's edition.
Sports Agents of Peyotes, more like it.
Championship games recapped. NFL Hall of Fame eviscerated. Head coach hirings detailed. And New York Jets misery, Lord, dived into. Next week, the Superb Owl. Well, a little over a week and a half from now, the Superb Owl will be decided. Next week's episode, we break it down and we make our picks and predictions for the final game this NFL season. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's edition of the program, and be ready for more fun, football, and chaos ahead in plenty of weeks after this one. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you guys next time. Take care, everyone, and bye-bye.